OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Well. This time yesterday, minus 2.5 hours, Phil was in for deal or no deal, and Inter Milan were sniffing around Leo Messi, and I was definitive, no, not a chance in hell that happens. It reminds me of the time one Friday night I confidently predicted that hell would freeze over before Roy Keane became part of Martin O'Neill's management ticket. And sure, that never happened, did it? If you want to get in touch this morning, 0879 180 180 is the number to WhatsApp us. You can send us messages there anytime. We obviously pick them up whenever. We're on Twitter with the hashtag OTBAM, or you can leave a comment wherever you're watching the stream this morning. But it is a Messi breakup special. Graham Hunter's going to join us in about half an hour's time. First, let's look back on how Pat and Evan talked about this and the Harry Maguire issue. Harry Maguire's never been as happy in his life to be bumped off the back pages. It's almost as if they bribed Leo Messi to do something, Big Phil, something similar as well. Anyway, we'll talk about all that in a little while. First, here's some Pat and Evan goodness talking first Harry Maguire and then where Leo Messi ends up next.
I'm very well. Look, I'll be honest with the listeners. We've already spoken today and that was streamed. Some of them may have seen it, but events, dear boy, events. So, I mean, we were going to talk to you ostensibly about the Champions League final and a few other bits and pieces. We now have to talk Harry Maguire and Lionel Messi, the other extraordinary news this evening. Can I start with the Harry Maguire latest, because I'd say his life has taken a bit of a turn in the past week, which he wasn't expecting. So, guilty of aggravated assault, resisting arrest, attempted bribery by a 3-member misdemeanors court today over in Greece. He's been given a sentence of 21 months and 10 days. That has been suspended, he'll be very happy to hear, because they are just misdemeanors and because of his clear criminal record. And Maguire has promptly responded to say, I've instructed my legal team with immediate effect to inform the courts we will be appealing. I remain strong and confident regarding our innocence in this matter. If anything, myself, family and friends are the victims. Gareth Southgate was out earlier on today at 2 o'clock, named Harry Maguire in the squad for the Iceland-Denmark games. Subsequent to the verdict, Gareth Southgate has withdrawn Harry Maguire from the England squad. As for Manchester United, they've released a statement strongly supporting Harry Maguire, saying he's pleaded not guilty. It should be noted that the prosecution confirmed the charges and provided their evidence late on, the day before the trial. It gave the defence team minimal time to digest and prepare. A request for the case to be adjourned was subsequently denied. And on this basis, say Manchester United, along with the substantial body of evidence refuting the charges, Harry Maguire's legal team will now appeal the verdict to allow a full and fair hearing at a later date. There we are. Whew, what an afternoon.
It's extraordinary. Now, there was a number of ways Harry could have gone once he found out that he'd been found guilty, after which seemed an extraordinary quick turnaround with limited opportunity to give evidence. And then he found out that he wouldn't have to pay anything, he wouldn't be spending any time in jail. He could have just said, nah, forget it, move on. And that's it. And do you know what? It would have blown up for a wee while and then it would have disappeared. But something else is going on. Something's rotten here. Something's amiss here. Because that was dead easy for him to do that, as far as I can see. But he said, no, I'm not having that. He wants to appeal it. And now, by appealing it, it's now an ongoing court case. And suddenly, you've got England's got a problem. Gareth Southgate, who was comfortable before, I have to say, as was I, with the position, almost storming the teacup stuff, suddenly it's not, because it's now live again. And because it's live again and it's appeal and he's been found guilty again, suddenly it will have legs, and it will have a lot of legs now. Now, why, you got to get your head around, why would his legal team do that? Because there's no, what's the downside? You can't go to Mykonos again. So what? There's other islands, you know. It's a weird one, and I don't know if it's the reason for it, but it sounds a wee bit like he said, I'm not having that. That's nonsense. That's trumped up. I'm not taking that. I'm not taking my clean record to be blemished. Again, we're in the dark here. Gareth Southgate spoke very well, or has communicated well about it, by saying he has limited information. He's obviously, like us, he's hearing two sides of the story. But a lot of the time I've had here footballers, and you and I talked about this earlier, you know, I'd just put my hand in my head and go, oh my God, who's making a backside of it again now? But this doesn't seem kind of like that. And particularly when you take into the I think they agreed and accepted. Beginning of the story is that, his sister was attacked and she was injected with something. I mean, the fear and collapsed. The fear of that, and then when they tried to get to the hospital, they'd end up via being stopped by the police and going to a police station. You can see where the panic comes there. And it looks to me and it sounds to me as if they're just, you might have certain charges, but they're grabbing stuff from everywhere, throwing everything, getting the book there and just throwing everything they possibly can. It seems odd. It does. It seems odd. Now, I'm guessing Harry Maguire, like many of us, I would argue me, if I had seen my sister, what I thought might have been seriously ill after being attacked by people, and the police are having a dig at me and not going after them people, I get a bit miffed. I really would get a bit miffed. And it's an ugly position it's now kind of grown into. But there's a bit of me that if Harry Maguire, if it's purely a moral thing, he's not letting this drop, and it's going to make it worse for him, i.e. it's going to last longer. There's a bit of me that's saying, well done, mate. If you don't believe in this, you better fight it. And he is, by the looks of things, fighting it.
So your assessment of his appeal is not that he feels he should to be seen to be innocent and therefore not to, castigate himself any further. You think it's a heartfelt, I've been wrong here.
Right, possibly. There's another possibility, right? Okay, he behaved and his friends behaved dreadfully and were boorish and were attacked the police and put people in danger and all the other stuff that you said there. And then he finds out he's basically getting off with it with a suspended sentence. And how many people in that situation turn around and go, no, I'm not having that. I'm going back. I'm going to have another go. You think? That's not intelligent. Now, I tend to work in logic. I tend to work in, would a guy do that and think, well, I'll just throw myself back in that because they might have cameras and videos of what went on and I might get caught. And the other thing, he's got a legal team there who'd say, wait a minute, why are you going back in there if there's any dubiety in your mind at all about it? So, I mean, again, I work in logic and I'm talking about these things and I'm thinking about these things, I'm thinking it through. I just don't think it makes a hell of a lot of sense at the moment. Now, hey, anyone out there, if I'm proved wrong, I'm proved wrong. We've all been wrong before. But with footballers, I'll be honest with you, time and again, I've been out with them, I've spent time with them, I've spent time and I've had a skinful, and the behaviour is dreadful sometimes and sometimes horribly illegal and definitely immoral. This kind of doesn't fit the pattern. It doesn't fit the pattern. The sister being there, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't fit the pattern for me. So that's why I have a real discomfort about where this is at the moment. And add on top of that, I mean, which is the weird thing is, I spend every year I go to Greece, I go to Greek islands. I love the Greeks, I love the Greek islands, I love the people. That's why I go there every single year and have done for the last 25 years. And I find it astonishing that this would actually happen in that situation. But as I say, I don't spend a lot of time with the Greek police, I'll be honest with you. It's the others, everyone else around I'm fine with. This is, for something that I thought would go away, we had a chat earlier, I thought this would go away quickly. And I still think it probably would have if Harry would just dropped it and let it go. But it ain't now. It absolutely isn't going away now.
No, it sure ain't. Please let me go. I am very rich. I can pay. I'm the captain of Manchester United, one of those headline-grabbing comments that he allegedly said, and he denies. His friend, Ashton Morley, was in the court today, and as was Maguire's father, by the way, just for people who are pretty catching up in this story, because I think I was in this bracket anyway. I'd seen the headlines and I was like, some kind of kerfuffle, Maguire, Greece, it's much ado about nothing. I didn't know we were headed for this situation, but Ashton Morley, he was called by the defence, and as you mentioned, Maguire's sister Daisy, her eyes were rolling back in her head. He said she'd been injected with something. So the group called the driver of their rented van to take them to hospital. Then they found themselves being driven to a police station because there were undercover officers directing the bus driver to do that. And then he talked about a moment where the group, he says, thought they were going to be kidnapped because men came on the bus. They were obviously not in uniform. Our bus door opened. 5 or 6 males tried to force us off by physically pulling us. And presumably at that stage, the arrest happens. And then Maguire's not best pleased that he is finding himself being arrested and his sister has been injected with something. And then there's the alleged attempt to bribe his way out of the situation, which he denies, and it all kicks off. That seems to be the flow of the night, in so much as you and I, who were not there, can piece it together.
And it doesn't sound like Harry Maguire was out with a bunch of his mates, getting drunk, being Larry, attacking folk in that sort of way. It's not that type of story. And that's why there's a real discomfort. And I don't think the police are even saying it's anything like that type of story. And I have to put myself in that position. I'm a pretty mild-mannered guy, but if someone has tried to attack and inject my sister, and I then get people aboard on my bus, I'm heightened. I'm willing to fight this off. I'm willing, because you're in a foreign country, you can't be sure. You've already had a group of Albanians attack you already. Who do you know? You just don't know who this is. So there's a lot of things. Everyone should be calm in certain situations, but can we all be calm in a situation that you think you're taking someone who you feel might be serious? And by the way, you have no idea what that could be in that injection. You have no idea. That could be lethal. So as far as you know, you have no idea. So that's in your mind, because you will take the worst things in mind. So you are in an utterly heightened state. And this, it strikes me as incredibly heavy-handed, just for what we've heard. And it's kind of odd the way it's blown out completely out of control for what was, the party that would appear to have been wronged is the one that finds themselves getting pushed into this and found guilty in no time at all. Someone else would make an argument before you jump in there. Would say, well, why didn't he just stay and face the charges? Well, I don't think he's really trusting law enforcement at the moment if they've done the previous to him. So you can see his point there.
Yes, you probably can, all right. And so Manchester United are going to support him, you would fully suspect. Do you think there's an issue now with him playing for England with an appeal hanging over him? I mean, I don't know how long the appeal takes, given the prosecution took no time at all. I mean, this seems almost unprecedented in terms of how quickly it all happened, and appeals for an adjournment to prepare for the trial by the defence were fell on deaf ears. So maybe the appeal takes a month, maybe it takes longer, maybe it takes less time. Can Gareth Southgate pick him to play for England with the press and the attention with this ongoing?
Well, he can. It's just whether he will or not. And the fact that he's so quickly released him from the squad just now adds a question. Personally, I would think until it's blown over, I would be tempted to pick him. But the other thing is, if he's picked now and then somebody else does something which is quite gross, I mean, serious, and they'll just point and go, well, you let Gareth away with it. Gareth, get Maguire away with it. You're digging yourself a little bit of a hole, aren't you? And I'm not absolutely convinced that he wants to do that. And the games that Harry Maguire's going to miss are maybe games that England should win. And they've probably got enough quality in centre-backs to cope, although he would be the core one. It's a tricky one. For Gareth, it's a really tough one to decide on, I think, because he wouldn't want to let his player down, but he knows that this will haunt him in the future if someone else comes up with a problematic position. It's a really political position. My suspicion would have been beforehand he'll stick by him. Now that he's dropped him from this squad, he probably won't.
Lionel Messi. Goodness me. I mean, this is just absolutely extraordinary. It's kind of surreal even to imagine him in a non-Barcelona jersey. So the news has come through. He sent a fax to Barcelona. He wants to leave the club. This is official, and this is not just a media story. This is real. According to RAC1 Radio, he had told Ronald Koeman when they met that he felt more out than in. And also, apparently, in that meeting, according to Spain's AS, the new Barcelona coach had told Messi that your privileges here are over, or something to that effect, which may not have been the best approach with Messi. Sid Lowe made the point, and it may all hinge on this. Messi's camp believes there is a clause in the contract which allows him to leave for free, as in, if he expressly asks to leave, then he gets to leave for free, and that is in his contract. Barcelona will insist he's still bound by a 700 million euro buyout clause. Now his contract expires next summer anyway, so that's all in the air. I mean, initial reaction to Messi officially sending that fax saying I want to go, I mean, it's just extraordinary.
It is an extraordinary story, and it's came really quick with the new coach coming in. You know that politics are like, as soon as you go to Real Madrid and Barcelona, politics are incredible about ownership, presidency, and all that sort of stuff as well. That's all kind of weird enough. There's the discussion about whether he has put in that transfer request early enough. I think it was June the 10th it was supposed to be in by. But this is a COVID year, and it's kind of the competitions have all moved on. So that could go to the courts as well, and that could be a €700 million lawsuit, that one as well. All that stuff. There's a million things, and it's strange to see, right, let's jump 2 steps ahead then, which is dangerous to do, particularly today. Where would it go? I've been thinking of that since it broke. I just thought, where'd you go? Now, there's plenty of clubs that have him. Let's be honest, there's lots of clubs that have him. Where would suit him? Right, so it's got 100%. It's got to be a top club, unless you go to Japan or whatever. Right, it's got to be a top club. Right, we get that. That's fine. So if it's a top club, who are the top clubs? Right, Bayern Munich won't take him. Right, because it's not that type of team. Right, so take that away. PSG, maybe, yeah, possibly. Then you start looking towards England, and you think, not too sure actually. Who does take him? Because you need to play him every week. You can't leave him out. But you need to have a type of team. So City would possibly take him. Would Liverpool take him? With the style that they play and the tempo they stay at? And you start thinking, actually, I don't know, there's probably only 3 teams that can take him, that can afford to pay him. And you don't even know if they can, but can afford to pay him. What I do suspect, though, is he knows exactly who's going to take him. He found out, and he's been told who's going to take him, and he's kind of happy with it. But it'll all come down to this legal argument. Part of it will come down to this legal argument, whether he goes for free or he goes for 700 million. Because the money you make on paraphernalia surrounding him, you probably make that money back.
So you suspect he fully knows where he's going if he's gone to the trouble of putting the facts. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it's fair enough. So is it Man City or PSG? I mean, they're the only two for me. I was trying to think as well. I mean, I don't suspect Chelsea are going to nab him. So it's PSG or Manchester City. Is there any way, say you're Man City, for instance, is there any way in which, now it's a first-class problem to have, but Messi, to some extent or other, is a bit of a problem, i.e. where you play him, you keep him happy, and you're also going to be fast approaching the point in his career where he'll be droppable. And that's a difficult scenario to bring into play as well, no?
Yeah, and it brings many, many positives. And many of those positives are great play, the hype around your club, the sale that you can make out of it. You are now a world-class club. If Man City are now officially, they are a world-class club anyway, but wow, are they a world-class club if they've got Lionel Messi for the last 2 possibly great years of his career. That's absolutely fantastic. But everyone else has to shuffle along. So you might be Kevin De Bruyne, but you're now second, by the way, mate. And the other side of it is Aguero's not getting any younger either. And do you really want to be surrounded by a kind of aging team? Considering what's happened to Manchester City this season, with the power and the pace and youth and the vibrancy of Liverpool, you know, that's what they're trying to follow. So you're right, there's a lot to take. When you get right down it, you still take them, like. You would take them because it's a bunch of goals. You will take them. Of course you'll take them. But you'll take on a bit of baggage as well. And not even necessarily current baggage, but maybe some future baggage that might actually create a problem for you. The good thing, I suppose, with Pep is the style's right at Man City. You know, this is fine. It's okay. The style's perfectly fine there. He will fit in. You go and ask him to play left, right, 10, false 9. It's fine. He can do all of them. It's not a problem at all. And then you maybe start thinking, well, wait a minute, Aguero's getting a bit older. You know, Jesus is pretty good, but not the very, very best. Well, you stick a Messi in there, and there's another 30 goals for you. And another 30 goals goes a long way to winning things. And you'd get that out of him, you know, even for the last year or two of his season. Because remember, Manchester City have got the ball. They spend 80% of the time on the ball. He wouldn't have to do a hell of a lot running back. He wouldn't do it anyway. So if I was him, I couldn't see past Manchester City. I couldn't see past it.
And what would your thoughts on Paris be?
Is it the right time? Is it the right time? You know, because obviously you can start seeing, well, Neymar gets a move and he might go back over to Barca. That would suit him. It's the league that he wins every year. PSG will still win the league and score a bunch of goals. Does he make them, after playing in a team that's just been beaten 8-2 by Bayern, he thinks he's maybe making a step up to a better team? But I mean, we had a quick chat earlier on about it. Is that really where PSG want to go now? Keep on spending those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds? Or do they want to start thinking, like, should we not be looking at not losing people like Kingsley Koeman instead of going the other direction? But once again, they'll take him. They would absolutely 100% take him, and I wouldn't blame them for him. So, like yourself, you know, take the Japanese one out of it, or the, you know, wherever you can go and just earn the dollars. Fair enough. But those two seem kind of obvious. Can you think of anyone else, Joe? Can you think of...
I saw Ian McCourt on Twitter, I think it was, make the point that apparently Inter Milan have had an ongoing diplomatically friendly relationship with the Messi family, and there's been lots of plumossing down the years. And God, if you're ever in the market, Lionel, you know, think of us. And I think they've been making a lot of money, Chinese investors, in the last while. They cross my mind, but really, I see it as Man City and then PSG in that order. And after that, there are a bunch of reasons to rule out the next few in line.
Yeah, the next few in line after that is a bunch of reasons, because they're going in a very different direction now, and they're not looking at that. They would love Messi 4 years ago, great, but do they want him absolutely now? And what you would have to give up for that, because he's not. Yes, you might even get him on a free, but boy, you're going to pay a lot in wages, even though you get money back in sale of merchandise, etc. But you have to see your Liverpool. You have to almost change your whole concept in some ways.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, they might say, well, you know, Mo Salah gets tired sometimes. Well, we've got Messi. Do you really think Messi's going to go for that? I'll be a kind of stand-in for Mo Salah. Can I see it myself? And would Salah mind being the stand-in for him? I just don't know. I really, it's tough. But football surprises us, doesn't it? But that would be a real shocker if we went that direction, because that'd be a very... You don't think of gegenpressing and Lionel these days, do you? It doesn't really...
No. No, he ain't quite in the market for that. So where does he play for Man City? Is he on the right-hand side?
Everywhere. Look, Silva's just gone. So David Silva's gone. And he's a few years younger than David Silva. David Silva started left, started right, you know, cruised into areas where it was dangerous, see where the problems were. And that is the fluidity of that. And remember, like, Pep's good at changing. He's just, yeah, they play 4-3-3 sometimes, but they play different systems at different times. And, you know, if he's happy to play, there's been times when you watch Lionel Messi and he plays central. And there's times when he plays left and looks phenomenal. But recently, for a long time, he played on the right-hand side, just fading into an inside right position for Barcelona, and, you know, scored a lot of goals from there. It kind of doesn't matter with him. I honestly don't think it matters with him. Anywhere that he can go and attack and cause trouble, because there's other players around him that will cover him. You know, and they'll not necessarily even work for him, but will work with him. And I think that would work with Man City. I think there's a bit of you that, in reality, it's almost a hope as well, because it would be lovely to see him in the Premier League. It would be great to see him in the Premier League.
Yeah, it'd be magic to get 2-3 years of him on Match of the Day, and, you know, it'd be just amazing. And, you know, he'd do lots of brilliant things which would still, you know, electrify even at his age. I just can't get my head around the fact that the Barcelona Messi thing is ending this badly, like this terribly. I mean, you know, it's like, will he ever even go back to the new camp in 20 years to wave to the crowd? You know, he's so disgusted with everybody there. Like, that's the sensational aspect of the story. Whatever he does over the next 2-3 years won't define his career. But there was something very clean and romantic about him, a one-club man, Barcelona. It was like a career as close to perfection almost as you can get. And now this ugly finish to it, I just can't believe it.
Yeah, and it's horrible, but he might see it as uglier if you say a team that's just getting battered 8-2 together, that he doesn't rate what's coming in below him from his position. He must think, well, wait a minute, am I going to look dreadful for the last 2 or 3 years of my career? Or can I have this lovely glowing end somewhere? Because if you go to a Man City or a PSG, you go and win trophies. It's fine. You win trophies, you smile, you score goals, and you get, more plaudits for the next 2 or 3 years. With Barcelona, if you don't win the Champions League and you get battered, really battered by some teams, and you don't believe what's around you is good enough anymore, that's kind of a hard thing to be in the midst of. There's not that many over the years that stick by that, stick by a thing falling while you are still utterly brilliant. I can see his thinking. I absolutely can see. And I don't think it's money, by the way. I'm sure it's not money. Well, money will come in there, but I'm sure it's not the main thing. I think it's not number one thing.
No, it's pretty a great point. It flattens out the steepness of his decline if he's playing in a really good team. I mean, geez, as for Barcelona, the whole thing has gone up in flames. Luis Suarez greeted the news on Twitter by responding with 2 applause emojis. It's just...
He'll be putting in his transfer request tomorrow afternoon. But Suarez he's lost it. The pace is gone there. I mean, he's not you don't look at him in the same way. He's still a great player and he's still a good finisher, and what a good goal he scored in that last game there, when one of 2 of the 8 he scored against him. But in reality, at that level, when you're trying to go and win Champions Leagues, a Champions League winning type team won't buy him now, because he's not quick enough and he's not sharp enough in that comparison. Get it all in context, he's still a great player, but not that type of great player. There's too many. You just look around and you look at, the Mbappes and the Gnabry's and the Sterlings and everything, the pace of these people, the pace of these players, the intelligence that's going around, and the fact that they're willing and hard workers as well, and the lack of baggage with most of them as well. That's the way everyone's looking at the moment at the very big clubs. So they're not looking at him. So him doing that applause, good luck, but it's kind of saddening. I think Suarez is more likely to go to an Inter or an AC than Messi. I think that's a better fit.
Yeah, agreed. And a very last point, I mean, maybe the worst way this could all finish for Ronald Koeman would be if Messi doesn't get his move and he's sat in the corner of the dressing room for the next year, disgruntled and unhappy. But for Koeman then, I mean, he's just left with an absolute mess, and Xavi waiting in the wings to come in. Koeman will probably get a year tops and the whole thing will implode, you would suspect, the way it's going.
And that's the sadness of Barca, what they had been before, because it was this kind of brilliant thing that was all built for years. But clubs are like that. They go through periods and there will be fallow periods, and it's up to you to choose the right time when to come in. Xavi's not stupid. He'll choose the right time to come in, and he ain't now. Absolutely ain't now. Whereas Koeman, when's he ever going to get another opportunity to do that? He'll take that and grasp it as much as he can. But that job is absolutely gigantic. What you need is 2, 3, 4 years to build that job around. He's not getting that. There's no way in the world is he getting that. But could he turn it down? No, he couldn't turn it down either. It's saddening, yes, but could they be back? Well, I wouldn't be surprised, because in the heart of that club, somewhere deep in the heart, that looks quite ugly and gnarled at the moment, there's still something beautiful, and they might get it back. But it looks years away. It really looks years away, and with Messi leaving in this way, it looks even worse.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
There's a growing hostility towards cyclists. We're somehow seen as a nuisance, when in fact we're just people trying to get to work.
I've never ever gotten one bad word said to me about my sexuality, or from the opposition, or from, actually in one bad time, the girl was marking me so tightly, I was like, I have a girlfriend.
I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, and that doesn't worry me. I know I can play good enough golf.
Don't miss the panel every Saturday afternoon, only on Off the Ball.
Into sports.
20 yards out, Ursh to shoot. Johnson! Oh, what a goal from Fabinho! Wow!
And get into the all-new OTB Sports app.
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him, yeah. No.
Videos, sports news, live scores, interviews.
If Fabregas is going to come up to me in the street and give me some of the mouth that he would have given me on a football pitch, what do we get a slap?
Plus, exclusive content on the OTB Podcast Network. The biggest names in sports, ready when you are. Search OTB Sports on your app store and download it now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Right, there's only one thing for us to talk about, and we're not talking Harry Maguire, we're not talking Phil Hogan. We might a little bit later on, by the way. 0879 180 180 is the number. Owen, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are things?
I'm very well. We also have Graham Hunter with us straight off the top because that's how big a morning it is. Graham, how are you?
Listen, Joe, let's cut with the formalities. Yes, he's going to Villa.
Right. I mean, why not? Why not? Come on, he's a romantic, a different colour. Like he'd be beloved of an entire gelatinous gloop in the Midlands. It's like
he'd need to be a new romantic, wouldn't he, rather than just a romantic? It's going to take something special, no?
Can we start with the contractual situation? Because I thought you were bang on when we talked last, and I think you might still be bang on about the contractual situation. So for anybody who's in any doubts about where legally we stand with Leo Messi's freedom and availability, what is the scenario?
It is sad that, you know, when we talk about the greatest players ever been, that we have to talk about legal details, but you're right. There is no question whatsoever that the get out of jail monopoly card that he built into his contract during negotiations in the early half of 2017 says that unless he informs the club in written manner, the same manner as he used yesterday with what was a Burofax as a registered delivery letter, it's that simple. That unless he notifies them by May, then he can't leave free that summer. If he does, if he'd chosen at any stage since 2017, each following May, if he'd written to them formally saying, I want to leave the club, they were bound to let him go for free by contract, which is, imagine the power he had that allowed him to negotiate that clause in 2017, but also imagine his mindset. I mean, I think that's an important part of what's been happening in all the days leading up to this, but obviously most importantly yesterday and from now on, that as far back as 2017, probably as they are planning it in 2016, they're reckoning there might come a day when we're just sick of what's a trend here. We need to go. So in the registered delivery letter that went to the club yesterday and was bounced back immediately by the club saying by registered delivery, you know, stick it, we man, no, we're keeping you. What they said was that he wanted to exercise the leave for free clause, even though in written terms that's expired. And their argument apparently is going to be that we've had such an odd extended season that August is May, effectively, because of the shutdown here, because of the lack of football. We didn't restart here until June. It's no, I've never sat on your show and pretended to be a legal expert for all my 1 year of law at Aberdeen University in 1980. But it seems a very, very hard argument to win legally, although these two have been to the courts before, as you know. In 2008, Barcelona went to the court for arbitration in sport to try and prevent Messi from playing in the Olympics until Pep Guardiola, newly in the door, said that's they won their case. This lot, they've been, in court before with him. It's amazing to think back. And Pep Guardiola said that's rubbish, even though Barcelona won their case. He said, Messi, you must go to Beijing, the gamble that paid off. But I don't perceive, honest, or at least it's hard to perceive, lads. I'm sorry, I said that badly. That Barcelona will take recourse to legal arguments in order to retain Messi for a season when they've got an angry, let down, bitter, probably by then ex-captain in their ranks under Koeman. That's a scenario I still find, I was going to say impossible, desperately hard to imagine.
So is there an in-between where it's not 700 million and it's not free, but they agree a price and either Messi pays that price and gets it back from the club he goes to, or the buying club pays that price?
I'd have thought that's a reasonable stance, because for all those who are listening right now and saying, well, no man's bigger than the club, Messi wants to leave for free, and despite his numerous trophies, the Ballon d'Or, 634 goals, to suddenly say my contract needs to be interpreted this way, I want to leave for free. There'll be a lot of people, however much they've enjoyed this footballer, been thrilled by him, will be saying, well, no, that can't be. And therefore, I understand your intermediary position. I suspect that even if they said, well, we reckon that right now at 33, he's still patently worth 100 million euros in the market. And then the clubs that want him have still got to pay net somewhere in the region of 45, 50 million euros in wages to match what Messi's earning at the moment. Then I think the queue of clubs that can handle this, either by their own will or their football planning or financial fair play, that queue becomes very, very small. So an intermediary position, and there are rumours, started by a radio station last night that Barcelona have a position that unless the price for Messi, that your intermediary position was larger than the world record transfer fee, which was for Neymar to Paris Saint-Germain, then no deal. Formally, Barcelona are saying you're locked into the contract. The buyout clause is 700 million euros. You know, the time when you could notify us and leave for free has gone. You're not moving. That's their formal position. But I understand your point, and I think that it would be a clever move by Barcelona to say, well, our reasonableness includes the idea that you could go for 150 million euros. Look how much we've discounted your price, Leo, and then effectively still render him not unbuyable, but extraordinarily difficult to prize free because of all the rules that now touch on what clubs can do to make sure that the books are balanced properly.
Well, can I ask one last question then about that? Is there any possibility that this is actually a political move by Messi to force the current president out now in the hope that he takes Koeman with him and the new president and Xavi are installed in time for the start of the new season? Is it that Machiavellian?
That started as a piece of toast and cheese and it became a Scooby snack this big. You know, you were going well for a little minute or two. And listen, I don't mean to be a little crybaby. I want to tell Pat. Pat's already told you that, Now, I listened to the clip and, you know, Pat knows. So the idea of Xavi coming in now is just I was going to say a non-starter. Here's the proper way to answer your question. It's a power play to force the president out. I think it's wrapped up in the idea that he wants to go. And my words are superseded by absolute miles when you listen to Victor Font, who I know is probably a less than well-known name to your audience. And the deal is that he last night said on radio, he wants to be the president next summer. He's the leading candidate to take over from Bartomeu. And in my opinion, he will win. And he will try to take Xavi with him and he probably will succeed. He said that he'd spoken to Messi's entourage, by which he can only mean his brother or his father. And they told him, he's quoted as saying that he was told that Messi's desire to leave is firm and that the only minute possibility of him reversing that decision would be if Bartomeu went. So to ignore that there's a power play element would be naive, but I think it would be ill-advised to think that that's the primary idea. Messi doing this to his public, to Football Club Barcelona, to his family as well, who he's spoken widely about how little any of them want to leave their Mediterranean side home just outside Barcelona. As Mrs. Merton said, what was it that first attracted you to the multimillionaire Paul Daniels? Why would you really want to leave if you felt that your football project was competitive? So is it a 2-in-1 potential power play? Might it potentially force Bartomeu out? Yeah, I take your point. But if Bartomeu went instantly, Messi's not a politician. Messi wants to win. And Bartomeu being removed, does that stop them leaking goals or does it make them more athletic up front? And it's a really nettle-chewing prospect to reckon that if Bartomeu would voluntarily say, now I see the error of my ways. How could I have missed him for the last 10 years as vice president, isn't it? And then he goes and then Messi like, you're beauty. Well, that's just sorted at the back then. No.
Can Bartomeu be impeached, Graham?
There is what's called a censure motion beginning today. One of the other pre-candidates to be president when the obligatory elections take place no later than next summer has begun trawling for votes for a censure motion. The quickest way to say that is that happened once within our working memory, you and I, which was in the late 2000s, I would say 2009-10, Joan Laporta fell out of favour with his vice presidents. Ferran Soriano, who's now in charge at Manchester City, left. So did Mark Ingler, who's in charge at Lille now. And there was a censure motion which was passed. Laporta was censured and he just shrugged it off. The only thing that could really dramatically alter the situation is if there was an emergency meeting that had enough of the voting members, socios, saying that they wanted Bartomeu out and that they wanted an election. That's a very difficult process to hold. And I say again, in Catalonia, we're in a place where there have been, nearly 30,000 deaths thanks to COVID. We're supposed to have, nobody is supposed to have meetings of more than 10 people. We've been asked to stay at home voluntarily this time, not by obligation, unless there's urgent business to conduct. The idea of emergency elections right now, simply to solve football problems, would seem to me grotesque, which I guess in Catalonia means that it's bound to happen.
Did Koeman screw up somewhere along the way here? As the blame gets apportioned out, and most of it's going to land at the president, but did Koeman somehow, was there a way that he could have fixed the scenario with Messi? Did he want to fix the scenario with Messi? What's that dynamic like at the moment?
Yeah, I got half of your idea about maybe there being a screw up, but he couldn't fix it. There's no danger of him being able to fix it. It's the same point as Bartomeu. He comes in and he talks brilliantly, he makes huge promises. Well, I've heard that before. Koeman talks a good game. Does that mean that the on-pitch problems are instantly solved? No. In terms of, there's a very clear line of thought that I buy into, that Koeman's vocabulary when he and Messi had the discussion, this is Wednesday, late last week, was, how would I put it? Stentorian, sufficiently stentorian to make Messi think, I'm not buying into this. There's a phrase that's bouncing about that evidently was used by Koeman about saying, all privileges are ended here. I'm in charge. There's no favourites. There's no hierarchy anymore. Now, if you say that to Messi, who is extraordinarily proud and can be very spiky and deserves to hold that position on his behaviour and his attitude and his work, in a pathetic season, he's contributed to well over 50 goals. I think it's 56, 57 between goals scored and assists. And he's been injured seriously during the season, and yet he's picked up the Ballon d'Or, and he's been one of their only 2 or 3 players that can hold his head up high after this rotten season. Koeman comes in, carrying the reputation he does, and saying, listen, wee man, I want you to stay, I want to build a team around you, but you have to understand that all privileges are over. You talking to me? If Messi had done a De Niro to him, a taxi driver De Niro to him, then Messi would have been within his rights. So you said screw up, maybe I'll avoid just confirming that phrase, but has he added to the temperature, which is a boiling point at the moment? Yes, so did the club by phoning Luis Suarez. And the sequence of events is important here. Luis Suarez and Messi are they're butch and Sundance. They're umbilically linked on and off the pitch. And the club's able to do with an employee what they wish to within the laws, but to read an article in El País here, I think on, let's call it Sunday, long article where Luis Suarez details exactly, one, that he wants to see out the last year of his contract, 2, that he believes he's got goals to score and trophies to win and that he can make a big difference in the remaining year of his contract. And then the next morning they phone him up from the club and say, you're out, we're breaking your contract, we'll pay you up, but find yourself somewhere else to go, mate. That manner of doing something, particularly after last week, Bartomeu, the president, said there are legends who'll be leaving, but they deserve to go with full owners out the front door. And then the next thing they do is, it's like you drop the soap in the showers and somebody's fiddling with your shorts. It was ungainly, and I believe that Messi hasn't sent this registered delivery letter saying I want to go because Suarez has been badly treated. But has it accelerated his decision? Yes, I think so. So between Koeman and the club, the bottom line is they've made missteps, and I think the only real question for you and your listeners to work out is, have some of those missteps been deliberate in order to galvanise the situation?
Yeah, and I mean, unless it's absolute ineptitude, saying to Messi, your privileges are gone, and then taking out his favourite lieutenants, like it's a fairly obvious, well-worn track in any mode of employment, particularly in football.
Possibly I should have said that, Jared. Nice point, well made.
Well, that's how it works, right? Okay, so those battle lines are drawn. If there is a transfer fee, it takes out almost all of the clubs in the world. If there's no transfer fee, then almost all of the clubs in the world are back in. So the next week or so, or the next few days are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see how they imagine that they can keep Leo Messi if he maintains his stated desire to leave. The idea of him maybe being stripped to the captaincy, maybe being unhappy, doing the bare minimum for the club, refusing to do any marketing or advertising duties. I don't think he's capable of staying at the club and then not giving everything in matches, but what kind of presence is that? Would Koeman tolerate Messi not speaking to him and just doing his job? It's next to unimaginable that Barcelona can force him to stay and do it healthily. Therefore, although the battle lines are completely drawn at the moment that Barcelona saying, you're not leaving, and Messi saying, I'm going, there has to be another way. And, I think it'd be foolish of me to say that there's absolutely no way, given all that we've learned about football in our working careers, to say that there's no way that this decision could be rescinded or the situation could change so seismically that Messi views the club and the training atmosphere differently. To say that's impossible would be wrong. But the banker bet at the moment is that he forces his way out, that he's known, when he sent this registered delivery letter yesterday, he's known where he wants to go. And yeah, it'll be interesting. And the only four that I've really been talking about, I'm pretty certain that I was first to the story well over a season ago, that Inter Miami had been building finances to try and tempt Luis Suarez and Messi to come together as a pair to this new Beckham franchised MLS team. Now, they've contacted both of them. My judgment is that Messi's determination to work and play every day at such a level that he can be prepared for one last shot at a World Cup in Qatar is that I don't understand that he would go to the MLS. I find that a hard idea to get to. The other Inter, the slightly more known Inter Milan, I don't think that they present a project. I don't think that Conte's tenure there, which seems to have been extended over the last 24 hours, is one where Messi thrives. The squad isn't good enough. They're not going to win the Champions League anytime soon. And for that reason, I discount the team, the club, that has probably tried the hardest with Manchester City. Inter have been at Messi since he was 19, to no joy so far. I think that will continue, which in my opinion leaves City and Paris Saint-Germain. The front three of Neymar, Mbappe and Messi, fed by Ander Herrera and Di Maria, is something that frankly I think he deserves at this stage in his career. And as a neutral, not a Barca fan, I'd hate to see him in League One, but I'd love to see him in that side. I'd love to see him playing with those guys. That would be almost as exciting a prospect as anything I can imagine. But I think City may be in pole position. They have tried so hard over the years to convince the extended Messi family that coming to City is the right thing to do. I'm not certain that would be driven by Pep Guardiola, who, like many coaches today, wants pressing from the front and speed of movement of the ball. And I think that Pep Guardiola might be a passenger on that journey rather than the driver, but City have desperately wanted him. If they can, what's the word I want to use? I don't want to use the word manipulate. If they can finesse their finances, the double F package, sufficiently to beat the other double F, FFP, then that's the place where I'm certain he would thrive. I'm certain he would enjoy himself. I'm certain he'd be training and learning and working at a level that might help him prepare over the next couple of years until summer 22 and a shot at the Qatar World Cup.
And look, we're out of time, but no chance of a Laudrup, no chance of a Figo, no chance of a Real Madrid swarming in and go, yeah, look, he just did, we stole your boy.
I am willing to say right now that I'll eat my hat. He's not like that. No, it won't happen.
All right, fair enough, Graham. It's a big story. As always, it's great to have you with us. Thanks a million. Graham Hunter with us this morning, 19 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM. And it is a big story. It is the end of an era. It looks like it wasn't quite sure if this was just Messi forcing his hand, and there's still, as Graham said, it's football. There is still a possibility that all that stuff is going to happen. A quick clip for you here from OTB AM. The morning after his free kick against Liverpool in the 2019 Champions League semi-final. Andy West is up next.
Let's have a look at this. Messi. Oh my goodness. والنظرات إلى ميسي. Allah. Just when you think he's done done everything, he comes up with something even more special.
Steve, if you went to the goal with the ball in your hands and placed it, you wouldn't place it any better than that.
Who does this, bro? Who does this, bro? What the fuck, bro?
It really is a bit, makes life slightly difficult, to be honest, but the third goal of Messi, my God.
What the? What the? They are dead! Shit! Messi! Shit! Man, God! Who does this, bro? Who does this, bro?
Messi, my God.
21 minutes past 8 here this morning, and Andy West is with us. Andy is also best known as the author of Lionel Messi and the Art of Living. How is Lionel Messi living these days, Andy? What's going on?
He's not very happy. There's a short way of putting it. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my book. That's not the point of this. But the reason I wrote the book in that way is because I think we can look at his life, his career, and get a great deal out of it that we can relate to. And this is a prime example. Here we have arguably the greatest footballer ever going through a personal, professional crisis. He's reached the point where, despite being with a magnificent club where he's enjoyed incredible success and recognition and riches, he feels there is no way for him to continue there and that he has to force his way out of this club. And I think it's absolutely genuine. There's very little question that this is a game, that he's using it for a contract or as a power play or anything like that. He just wants to leave because he's had enough, and he is in a bad place right now. He just wants to get out of it and get into a better situation.
It's madness to think that Barcelona have been sitting on a team with the best player in the world, backboned by a team who was good enough to win a World Cup for Spain, and that they've underachieved and invested so chronically over the last 5 years to the point where they're forcing the best thing that's ever happened to them to leave. It's madness.
It is madness, and it's a series of bad decisions dating back, I'd say, 10 years since Sandro Rosell took over as president. And back then, if we think back not just to the football that they played under Pep Guardiola, but that the image the whole club had as Messi club, they didn't have a shirt sponsor. They gave it to UNICEF. They were that kind of club. Everyone admired them for their values as well as for their football. But all of that has been eroded. Everything has been destroyed, really, by firstly Rosell and then by Bartomeu, the current president, who really is the author of this demise by making bad decisions. And you wonder, why has he made such bad decisions? Is it just incompetence? I think that's the kindest thing we could say, is that he is well-meaning, trying to do his best for the club, but he's incompetent. He's out of his depth. He can't cope with this level of pressure. He doesn't have the intelligence to make good decisions. He doesn't have the force of personality to make good decisions under pressure. And he has made a series of terrible recruitment decisions that eventually have caught up with the team. And yes, this is obviously the final straw in the destruction of the team, but it's been coming. We've seen it over many years, going back to when they lost that game 4-0 at PSG. Yes, they somehow turn that around, a famous victory to win the tie, but the writing was on the wall at that point and has continued. Every time they've come up against top quality opposition ever since, they've crumbled, and it's just been getting worse and worse and worse, and this is just the latest in a long trend.
If Andy, they managed to sell Messi by Friday, Bartomeu will have got rid of a manager, a sporting director, and their best ever player in the space of a fortnight. It will have been one of the most extraordinary self-destructions influenced by the head of a football club that we've ever seen in modern football. We kind of spoke about this earlier on in the show, but how is this allowed to happen, basically, is the question that I would certainly have, not being around a club, not knowing exactly the inside fabric of the club, that one individual can really have such a destructive impact on a club.
Yeah, as I said a couple of minutes ago, it's just bad decisions. And one of those bad decisions Messi isn't completely innocent in this. He has been granted and taken too much power, too much influence over the direction of the club. And they've been caught between, the directors, led by Bartomeu, have been caught between trying to do what they think is best for the long-term future of the club, often in a wildly ineffective and knee-jerk way, such as signing Coutinho, who never looked like he was going to fit in at Barcelona for a huge amount of money. They've been caught between trying to do the best for the club in their way and trying to keep Messi happy by doing things like not benching Luis Suarez or selling him when they could have done. If you think back to Manchester United and the way they were able to stay at the top for so long under Sir Alex Ferguson, it's because he made ruthless decisions. As soon as he felt that a player or a group of players were becoming too big, too influential, bigger than the club, he would just get rid of them with no hesitation. And Barcelona haven't done that. They've allowed the team to stagnate and become decadent. I think that's the word. They've gone into decay through decadence, through complacency, through not making the hard decisions about how to rebuild the team when they still had the chance to, before it became too late. Now it's way too late.
That's exactly the Barcelona that Leo Messi came into, where Ronaldinho was eating ice cream at training, essentially, where he was partying and he was bringing the young Messi out, partying to the point where they came in and were like, okay, you got to go. You have to go because you're going to bring Messi down a path that will actually be bad for him. It's funny, this club is just addicted to the celebrity and the fame and the money and the, like, it reminds me a little bit of Miami. Just the bang of, I don't know if you've seen all those documentaries about Miami exploding and the cocaine money, and like the decadence is the thing that ultimately decays the whole city, that prevents it from ever becoming this amazing place that it could be. And it feels like Barcelona is just trapped in this endless cycle. Finally, they seem to reach some level of where they should be at when they had the best player in the world and the best team in the world, and they won 2 Champions Leagues in 4 seasons. But Pep Guardiola walked away from it. And actually, you're talking about Sandro Rosell. If they could have just said, okay, Pep, take a year out, go and travel the world, go and live in America, learn your English in New York, but come back to us. We'll keep the hot seat warm for you. Come back to us. Maybe this could have been saved.
Maybe, but he already saw what was coming because he did not have a good relationship with Sandro Rosell, who was the president at the time. That wasn't the president who recruited him. He came in under the previous president, Joan Laporta, and had a great relationship with him. But then when Rosell took over, Guardiola already saw where it was potentially going. The one thing I think we should mention as the great what-if moment in Barcelona's recent history. Yes, as you say, if Guardiola had been persuaded to stay or have a sabbatical and come back, maybe that would have changed things. But so too could have been if Tito Vilanova hadn't passed away. He was Guardiola's assistant and his successor. He was the one who had been through that era and was the continuity. He had a big personality. He had the courage to make big decisions. Then tragically, halfway through his first season in charge after Guardiola left, Vilanova was the manager, doing very well. Messi was playing better than ever. He had a recurrence of cancer and passed away a year or so later. That is a tragedy on a personal level, obviously, for his family, to lose someone so young in his 40s, and for the club. What would have happened if Tito Vilanova had been able to have 4 or 5 years as Barcelona manager and continue what Guardiola had started with Tito at his side? That is, if we want to look at the big picture, the great what-if moment.
Andy, to be kind of devil's advocate to this whole idea that Lionel Messi has been screwed over by the club here a little bit. Being devil's advocate can come in the shape of Luis Suarez. And you mentioned how his decline as a footballer has been noticeable in recent years. He is not at the level right now, a lot of people will argue, to lead Barcelona from the front to go and win a Champions League. However, Lionel Messi is extremely loyal to Luis Suarez. The way he has been immediately treated by Ronald Koeman apparently doesn't sit well with Lionel Messi. should there not be questions of Lionel Messi in that situation about him, I guess, sulking and essentially sending being a part of his reasoning to leave the club because of the fact that Luis Suarez has immediately been cast aside by Ronald Koeman? Does there not need to be a question around that should Messi not allow Suarez to leave because he isn't at Messi's level anymore?
Yeah, but he's not just leaving because Luis Suarez has been told that he's on his way out. That's one of the many, many factors. He reportedly wasn't happy with his own conversation with Koeman. And Koeman, we're hearing, told him, you're no longer going to get any privileges. I'm going to be inflexible with you. It's not just about Luis Suarez. But as I said a few minutes ago, yes, Messi is not completely blameless in this. And there have been accusations against him for years that he is too powerful in the dressing room. The nickname that sometimes appears is the little dictator. That goes back years, and it first surfaced, as far as I can recall, just after Tito Villanova, who I mentioned a minute ago, had to leave the club, and they went through a period of great uncertainty with weak leadership in the dressing room and in the boardroom. And yes, Messi hasn't been blameless in that respect, and he's always been at his best when he's played under strong leaders. Pep Guardiola, Luis Enrique in particular, are the two managers who've got the best out of him. They're the two strongest personalities he's played under, who've not taken any nonsense, who've told him this is what we're doing. But Messi has reacted in the way that he has and taken that level of responsibility, too much responsibility, because he's felt he's had to, because he's seen the gulf in leadership, the lack of authority around him, and felt, well, if I don't do this, no one else is going to. I'm going to have to try and pick up this team on my own. It's the same thing we've seen with Argentina, exactly the same, that when they have been a shambles, as they generally have been throughout his time as an international, that's when he's been at his worst, because he's tried to do too much. Exactly what happened in the last World Cup. They were horribly unprepared. Messi thought the only way they got any success is if I try to do everything myself, and it backfired, as it only inevitably can in a team sport. So yes, he's not been blameless because he's tried to take on too much himself, but that's only because he's felt that he's had to.
What's your belief on how this contract situation is going to go? Because if the tables were turned here, Andy, I'm sure you'll agree that if Messi's contract expired this summer, he would have been asked to play the remainder of the season. Barcelona would have said, well, the season isn't over, you're playing right up until the end of August. Now that the tables are set in this correct manner, surely Barcelona should also play by those rules.
Well, it depends on the interpretation of this clause, which will quickly become one of the most famous contract clauses in sporting history, that allows him to leave the club free, with no obligations, at the end of the season if he notifies them at the end of the season. He claims he's just done that. The club claim that the clause is June is when he has to tell them, which in normal circumstances obviously is the end of the season. And I believe the wording in the contract even states the date, the 10th of June, in which case Messi's claim that he's done it now and that it's valid because the end of the season has just happened and that it should be taken into account that the whole season was rescheduled because of COVID, etc., etc. That argument probably won't stand up in a court of law, which is where this is likely to head. Barcelona are very unlikely to say, OK, yeah, we'll let you off then, off you go. Yeah. We'll let you leave for nothing. And in a way, why should they? If he wants to leave, they should try and get money out of it. We're talking about a lot of money for a club who don't have any. So, yeah, but Messi, likewise, isn't going to back down and say, OK, I'll stand by that. Forget my clause. I will wait until someone negotiates or brings 700 million. So it's probably going to end up in a court of law to see how this clause is interpreted, and then we'll have to take it from there.
Presumably some deal gets done in a back channel between Barcelona, Messi and whoever is willing to make an investment in him, and a price gets hammered out, because it will be demeaning for Barcelona to be in court with their greatest ever player, who at some point in the future they will still want to sell jerseys with Messi on the back of, you know, the 20th anniversary of Leo Messi winning something is a lot of future revenue for the club. if they get to the point where they've humiliated him in court, unlikely. I mean, they've got to play a long game here as well.
Yeah, but I think we've got to separate the club, Barcelona, that you're talking about, the long-term institution that will survive this and that will always hold Messi as a special part of the club's history, and Bartomeu, the president. This is personal. And he is the one who will decide how the club deals with this. He loves a court battle. When recently one of his directors resigned and made some allegations about him, his first reaction, take him to court. That's what Bartomeu does. It's not about Barcelona as a club. It's about what Bartomeu wants to do. And he has a lot at stake in not backing down and trying to beat Messi in this. It's personal between them now. So Bartomeu will want to go the legal route. And what the wider club and its fans want to do is, sadly, pretty much irrelevant. In a few months, that also becomes irrelevant because Bartomeu will leave when his tenure comes to an end and there'll be a new president. And then the club can mend its relationship with Messi, who by then will have probably gone. But for now, it's about Bartomeu, who is saving face and trying to save money because there's this story that if he leaves with the club in debt, then he personally would be liable to repaying the club. So he has to sort out the club's finances before he leaves, which is why he's not just resigning now.
Okay, that's a good point that we probably should have aired before now, that there is this weird scenario where if the club is in hock, the directors who put it in hock are actually on the hook for the debt. So, yeah. And Barcelona have invested so horrifically in recent seasons. The notion of them getting money back for Dele or Griezmann or Coutinho at the moment seems quite fanciful. So, if you could get some money from Messi, gut instinct, Andy, what price is Leo Messi on the open market right now?
The 100 million comes to mind. That was the figure that Ronaldo went to Juventus, wasn't it? And I think that would be, it's a round figure and it's there's egos involved, and Messi would not want to be valued lower than Cristiano Ronaldo. And it seems a fair amount for a player who would still give 2, 3, maybe more great years. He is still an astonishing player. I think it would be an acceptable just about fee for Barcelona to accept, for Bartomeu to accept. It would be an acceptable valuation for Messi to be seen as the same as Cristiano when he left Real Madrid. And it would be just about acceptable for a buying club. It's not unrealistic for a PSG, a Man City or an Inter Milan to pay that level. So around 100 million would be my guess.
So one Jadon Sancho plus 20 million. Or Leo Messi plus 20 million equals Jadon Sancho these days. Suddenly 100 million seems just about doable for a few clubs going, could we maybe catapult ourselves into the stratosphere of super clubs? If you're Daniel Levy, do you think, I could 100 million quid?
No, well, forget that because Jose Mourinho, no way Messi plays Mourinho. No way.
Jose, I like your style, but I'm sorry, we got.
No way.
It's so there is a possibility here, Andy, of a middle ground, because initially when you look at reports, it's going to be for free or for 700 million euro, but there may be a gentleman's agreement involving plenty of gentlemen that might get you something in the region of 100 to 150 million euro.
Yeah, I think that will probably be the way it will be, because Messi won't want to sit out the season and then leave for nothing, as he will be entitled to because his contract is up next summer. He won't want to just not play this season, so he'll want to get a deal done. It's unlikely that he'll win a court case that would allow him to leave for nothing, which would open up a huge range of potential clubs who otherwise might feel themselves priced out. So for everyone, Barcelona's to make some money out of it, Messi to be able to play this season, and clubs to be able to buy him, then middle ground. That's we've seen it time and time again when you have disaffected players who want to leave a club, clubs who want to sign him, other clubs who are prepared to make a sale if the price is right. It's what happens in football all the time. This is an extraordinary case because it's Lionel Messi, but ultimately it will just be a footballer leaving a club, and that middle ground will be found as it always is.
We assume Manchester City in. We assume Paris Saint-Germain are in the sweepstakes at this point. Are any other... Inter have made noises and apparently have long lusted after Leo Messi and have made overtures, Graham said, since he was a teenager. Are there any other realistic, if there is a transfer fee involved, are there any other realistic protagonists in this at the moment?
The only other one I'd add is Manchester United, which is a bit of an outlier because we talk about Manchester United and the transfer market and everybody starts laughing. They've not exactly covered themselves in glory in the last few years. And they're probably the least favourites out of those. Out of the candidate clubs, it's the three you mentioned, City, PSG, and my personal hunch is for Inter. But United have to be considered, and there's an interesting reason why I think they have to be considered. In March, the biggest sports story of the year at the time, it's now been eclipsed, was in the States, where the legendary quarterback Tom Brady, one of the greatest players in American football history, left the New England Patriots and joined Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Big shock. Who owns the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? The Glazers. So when they make these moves, they make big moves. They may see what they did in Tampa and think, we'll do the Tom Brady of football now. It's a possibility. It's unlikely, but it's a possibility.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I actually, like, even from a playing perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Like when you look at Solskjaer's career, there were always a multiplicity of striking options for Ferguson. Whenever he looked at the bench, there was always somebody there. So Leo Messi doesn't want to play 60 games a season. He doesn't have to play 60 games a season. He can play in all of the home Champions League games and any of the away Champions League games against good teams. He can then play in the 35 or 30 league games that are vitally important. You never play him in the Cup. You never play him in the League Cup. And he can play any one of those front three. So whoever is coming in, everybody's playing the same amount of games. And next time you go shopping in Dortmund, they're like, actually, we'll give him to you for 80 million because we understand you don't need him anymore.
And what Messi needs is, and this has been Barca's problem, and it was really highlighted in the Champions League, that famous game against Bayern. What Messi needs is young kids around him who will run. Because football now has evolved, even in the last 10 years, since Guardiola's great team. It's become much more athletic, much more dynamic. Look at the physical strength, the bodies of players now. When you compare people like Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, they're just physically with the Bayerns. And Barcelona don't have that. That's one of the main reasons they've fallen off a cliff so dramatically, is that they don't have athleticism. They're full of old players in their 30s. United have all these youngsters who could allow Messi to not run, allow him to be the luxury player up front, and do all this running for him, all the buzzing around him. It could work. It could work. It would be a massive challenge for Solskjaer coaching to get that to work, to get the balance right. But yeah, in a football sense, in that way, it could be a good fit as well, because you've got the Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, these young kids who will be happy to do the running for Messi and receive his glorious assists and set him up for chances that he'll take. So yeah, maybe Manchester United. So
they're in the mix. You think the Inter are the most likely. So if we were to power rank those, it'd be Man United 4, Paris Saint-Germain 3, City 2, Inter 1. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd go with that. And I think Inter are the most likely because they've been the most persistent. They've got the money. They're owned by a Chinese corporation with no ends of money. They're desperate to get back to the top in Italy, firstly, with Juventus 9 leagues in a row. They're desperate to end that. They weren't far off this year. And their president has spoken openly about wanting to sign Messi. This is his chance. It's there for him. So if they want it, they can get it. And Italy might appeal to Messi culturally more than Manchester. So I just put it to Inter as favourites.
Andy, you get a new chapter for the next version of your book, Workplace Disputes, as directed by Leo Messi.
Yeah, or Lionel Messi in the art of leaving, as someone said. We'll see.
Andy, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 0879 180 180 is the number. We're going to have more on this. Nathan's going to join us for Deal or No Deal. There's like one deal it's worth really talking about. That Manchester United idea, I like that. I think that could be interesting. And certainly because it would be a real bloody nose to Manchester City, in the same way that signing Jadon Sancho would have been as well. But I mean, look, if you're Machiavellian and you're in charge of one of the biggest football clubs in the world, and you're like, well, we already have this money earmarked for Sancho anyway. Why don't we just put it over here and see what happens? Put the chips on the table on Leo Messi. It's not going to be bad from a corporate perspective, is it?
No, and the key word there is Machiavellian. I think there's been some suggestions that Manchester City may not want to get their hands dirty in this deal because of who's involved with the club. You've got Pep Guardiola, you've got Vickery and you've got people who don't want to piss off Barcelona, which could be a key point in all of this. There is going to have to be some tough negotiations done here, especially if the middle ground is going to be found. So essentially what happens is, if you're taking out the zero and you're taking out the 700 million euro, it becomes a bidding war. It becomes you versus Barcelona to get your hands on Lionel Messi. How dirty are Pep Guardiola and Vickery ready to get their hands? Because that's probably what it's going to take. The Glazer point on Tom Brady, like, I think it's maybe a bit of a stretch, but at least they've done something on that scale this very year. I think that there is legitimacy to the prospect of it, and I think it would obviously be a good move for Manchester United. I've kind of flip-flopped between so many different things over the last few hours. How big is the possibility that Messi actually just stays in Barcelona? It's kind of why I asked Graham, could Bartomeu get impeached? I think that there is a genuine personal beef almost at this point, where sure, Ronald Koeman may be telling him that you're not the big boy around here anymore, but he probably blames Bartomeu on bestowing Koeman upon him. Then you've got the possibility of, well, how many clubs can actually afford him if this clause doesn't actually go the way that Messi wants it to go, given the pandemic, and given the age of Lionel Messi as well. People probably have to think about the financial viability of having Lionel Messi in your football club, which may seem like a ridiculous thing to say, considering he is still one of the best players in the world and will be probably for the next 1 or 2 years at the very least. But still, you're thinking about what is going to be the sell-on value of Lionel Messi. Not very much.
No, there's no sell-on, but you get your money back if you are set up already to wring the last amount of money out of the superstars at your club. Then Leo Messi is a perfectly legitimate signing. The cost is essentially whatever the transfer fee is plus 100 million. So to pay him 50 million net a year, you have to essentially pay him 100 million because you're in the top rate of tax, right? Now, there's loads of different ways you can do that. Some of your image rights might come in at a lower tax rate. So maybe it's 75 to 80 million that you've got to say, these are my wages. But like, can you just get rid of a load of players at Manchester United who are soaking up that amount on the wage bill? You can. You absolutely can. Like, there's a way to do that is clever enough for you to think, look, let's just try it. I mean, what's the downside? We get Leo Messi and it doesn't work out, but we gave it a shot. And suddenly that team has Messi and Pogba and some young superstars. That's not a bad team.
Like, nothing looks like a bad team when you throw Lionel Messi into the mix.
Well, I actually think that the City team, and so does he really work at Liverpool? I don't think he does.
For Man City, he works brilliant. Like, with a pass for like Kevin De Bruyne in the team, he works brilliant.
Where is he playing?
Liverpool, I would kind of agree with you. But like, I mean, in Manchester City,
is he playing with Aguero, or is he taking Aguero out of the team? They're mates. They haven't been a brilliant international partnership, have they?
Aguero plays the Suarez role, and Raheem Sterling plays the Neymar role, and Messi is on the right of that front three, where you've got Kevin De Bruyne behind them. Like, it's an outrageous lineup if you throw him in there. I agree with you in Liverpool. I think Liverpool is a bit more nuanced, and the pressing game is so important. Sure, Manchester City's pressing is also very important. Look, and with Aguero and Messi, you've got two old men up front.
Yeah, well, and look, you can make him work you can clearly make him work in the Liverpool team. Again, everybody gets a little bit of a rest at various stages, and in the absolutely big games, then it's Bobby Firmino who misses out and you're playing a false nine, or Leo Messi's playing a nine.
But it's obviously not going to happen because they can barely get 30 million quid together to sign Thiago, so they can't even get their small change together. So also, I think Liverpool are very, very stuck to their structure at the moment in the direction the club is going. I think a certain abandonment of where the club is going is required if Manchester United or Liverpool need to sign him. With Manchester City, I'm not necessarily sure. I think that they've...
All right, I think with United, actually, like, we were going to sign a forward anyway. We kind of don't really need one. We've been rebuffed by Dortmund. The price is not a million miles away. Obviously, the salary is, but like we can make that back, we think, because we're well set up to sell tractors in Ukraine. So away we go. 8:50 this morning, 0879 180 180. Tell us what you think is going to happen. If you're a Man United fan and you're suddenly waking up to this going, wait a second, there's a chance we get Messi. What? This isn't Falcao with his busted knee. This isn't even Zlatan at the age of 40. This is actually Messi still in Ballon d'Or winning form. You've got to go for it. Papers.
OTB AM.
Lionel Messi faxes Barcelona telling them he wants to leave. It's a bureau fax, so technically it's registered mail. It might have been an actual fax machine. We don't know. It would be great if it was an actual fax. And they bounced one back straight away going, nah. Harry Maguire dropped from England squad after guilty verdicts. Guilty, Harry Maguire. But he says he's innocent, and Man United are certainly willing to listen to that and wait for the full facts to emerge in the appeal. But for now, he's guilty. And most people don't get the benefit of the doubt when they get found guilty in a foreign court. You look at the justice system in England and how they found people guilty really quickly and went, no, the verdict is guilty. We're not reopening that. We don't need to know about the facts that you have about the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4. No. Those guys are guilty and we're not going to hear anything about it for 20 years. So Harry Maguire is guilty, according to the Greek courts. And as was it James Corrigan on Twitter pointing out, they invented the justice system. So, like, you know, they actually do know a thing or two about this. Leeds win race to sign 40 million Valencia striker Rodrigo Moreno, so they've started splashing the cash. And as soon as the transfer stuff starts, it doesn't stop. You take Messi, but he comes with baggage. Pat Nevin on the Messi bombshell. He's talking about in future, at some point, he is going to fall off a cliff, because everybody does. And Kieran McGeehan talking on how lockdown helped you feel like you're chasing your tail. She was on last night. We might play a clip of that a little bit later on as well. I'm going to start with the Examiner here, back in studio. Rue understands luckless Munster star Snyman's pain. So Quinn Rue can relate to RG Snyman's predicament better than most, as his fellow South African mulls over a torn ACL, suffered just months into his new life in Ireland and only 7 minutes into his new gig at Munster. Interesting column from Kieran Shannon talking about the split season. And then obviously, there's good stuff there from David Goff talking about the GAA. This is really interesting. He says he attempted to wear a rainbow-coloured Freedom wristband while officiating a game in early 2015, but was refused permission by the GAA. He said he was advised at the time by a number of top officials not to make the gesture, and wonders now if inter-county players considering going public about their sexuality are receiving similar advice not to do so. I remember around the time of me attempting to wear the wristband in 2015, 3 people very high within the association told me, don't do this. It's going to end your refereeing career. It's a bad move for you. It'll look bad for the association. He says he points out that Croke Park still doesn't light up in rainbow colours for Pride Week. Every other iconic Dublin landmark flies the Pride flag or puts itself in rainbow colours over that weekend. And the GAA are just slow in changing their protocols. It will come, and when it does come, they'll wonder why they sat back and waited for so long. Imagine being somebody telling David Goff, don't wear a rainbow wristband. And imagine not being alone in that. Like, you're not on your own. You're not on an island. There's a bunch of people going, no. It's bad luck for the association. Really bad luck for the association. But David Goff now, 5 years later, is pointing out that the bad luck is those 3 dinosaurs telling him not to wear the rainbow wristband. And it's a good point. Croke Park should be lit up for Pride Week in the way that the Aviva Stadium is in rainbow colours. And I don't really understand why they're not flying the Pride flag. So we might chase that story over the next while and see exactly what the official response is now if things have changed. Messi, I'm off. This is the only story in the papers, really, that we're talking about in any detail here today. City on alert as Barca star prepares exit, and Kenny concerned following injury to McCarthy. Just after we were talking about James McCarthy being a mainstay and hugely important in central midfield, 20 minutes into the game last night, gets a kick on the ankle and gets subbed off. The Irish Times this morning is leading with Gordon Darcy's column. He's pointing out that Munster missed a really big opportunity to try and actually, under match conditions, win the game last week. Instead of kicking the ball into touch, they shouldn't have done that. And then obviously Sid Lowe's piece is the one that they're carrying on Leo Messi. Southgate's rapid U-turn over Maguire is the back of the London Times. They're leading with that instead of Leo Messi, which I think is interesting, and I'm sure Harry Maguire was like, oh, come on, please take me off the back pages. Come on, Leo Messi. I love your timing. Quinn, FAI will not tackle Neffet, so they're saying that they're going to wait and they're going to work with the government and use diplomatic channels to try and find out exactly when they're going to have fans in the stadium. He hopes that there might be a possibility for having some fans in the Aviva. One of the other papers has details of an English company who are publicly saying that you could get about 30,000 into Croke Park if and when social distancing and congregation is allowed. You could manage that properly with tickets for households and maintain a metre and a half social distancing between groups of people, and you can get about 30,000 in, which would be great. Caught short, you have to read it in the accent of somebody doing this. Southgate calls up Maguire, axed at 2 o'clock. 7:48, axed after he's found guilty. And then Jose has his eyes on a matte finish. So this is a Neil O'Riordan story I haven't seen anywhere else. Matt Doherty is on the radar for a move to Spurs. That'll be a big move. And then Teasy Rider. Hogan defends lockdown golf road trip. They're comparing him to the legendary late 60s movie, Easy Rider, or was it early 1970s? I think it sneaks into the 60s, which is a wild, debauched tour of the country by two bikers, Peter Fonda, and who's the other guy? Dennis Hopper, going crazy on their Harley Davidsons. And is it an appropriate analogy? I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. And then what a mess. City on alert as Barca icon drops a bombshell. I'm off. And obviously, Harry Houdini. That's a good headline. Maguire in squad, and then he's gone. Poor Harry Maguire. Poor Harry Maguire. What a remarkable story it is. Like, what a remarkable story. Have you heard the story that they came up with? Do you know the story? Have you heard the story, Owen?
That's who came up with it, the Harry Maguire defence team?
Yeah, so Harry Maguire's sitting there just having the crack, minding his own business. When all of a sudden, his sister's eyes start rolling back in her head. She's been injected with a mystery substance. This is like an Agatha Christie novel. And then men burst in. And it looks like the men are bursting in to kidnap the famous footballer. So he fights back because he's a English roundhead. Turns out they're cops. Oh! And that's the bit where you're resisting arrest, and there's this whole kind of subplot to it, like who were the people who were injecting his sister in the first place? What was their end? Were they actually trying to hold him to ransom? Was he a target for an international criminal gang? It's like, wow, this is amazing. But then he's alleged to say, I'm the captain of Manchester United, I can pay you. It's like, oh, to the cops or to the people who he thought were kidnapping him? So it's a remarkable story, Owen. I have not heard the like of it. I actually don't remember hearing a story like this at all. And lucky for Harry Maguire, no one's going to pay that much attention to it now because Leo Messi, the best footballer of all time, is suddenly available, and maybe for not very much money.
There's going to be an appeal, obviously, so I think that he's hoping to perhaps have something overturned, even though he's not going to, obviously, it's a suspended jail sentence. He's not going to serve any time for this. He posted on Instagram last night, posted a photo on his story saying 3 things cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. It is a quote, of course, from Buddha. So Harry Maguire is hoping that Buddha's quote there comes to pass and the real truth comes out. It is, the details from the court proceedings yesterday were fairly extraordinary, right, as you've already detailed. But the point that I guess are alluding to there about, do you know who I am, and the alleged offer of bribery.
Well, he's been found guilty of it now. So he's been found guilty of it in a Greek court. What they said was that that's what he did. That's what the official court record stands at the moment. He is guilty of those charges, right? That's what... Yeah.
I guess the other part of the story that you didn't mention there was that he tries to get to a hospital and gets brought to the police station instead.
Oh yeah, that was the bit. Yeah. When did the masked men arrive in? Was it at that point? So was the bus driver was acting in concert with the cops? Is that my ability to follow the plot twists they got a bit lost there, not gonna lie. It was so detailed.
It was extremely detailed. You've seen people online say well, I mean, a member of Harry Maguire's family was under severe threat. Of course, Harry Maguire is going to do anything within his power to ensure that nothing bad happens to his own sister. You've also got people kind of going one step further, and you, like Jamie Carragher on Twitter yesterday, saying, not the type of guy to say, do you know who I am? Like, the whole idea of, do you know who I am, has been held up as something that could be conflated to murder. The worst thing you can possibly do as a footballer right now is say, do you know who I am? What is wrong with saying, do you know who I am, if you genuinely feel your sister's life is under threat? Would you do the same thing?
No.
Would you play all the cards that you have?
I mean, that's not a card, though. That's actually not a card. That's just a card that gets everybody's back up. Is it not? Don't you know who I am, mate? Well, not really.
Well, when you put on that voice,
do you think it's like, I'm the captain of Manchester United. Perhaps I have some diplomatic ties that might be able to smooth this scenario out. Is that the voice that Harry Maguire was using at, like, whatever time it was?
I'm sure he was panicked quite a bit. I'm sure he was not in a relaxed mood whatsoever. How could you be in that situation?
Oh, the blood's up.
Is that, like, is that the charge? If Harry Maguire got locked up for 20 years and the key was thrown away, in 20 years' time he'd be coming out and be saying, forget about that. He said, do you know who I am? Like, I mean, that's the worst thing you can possibly... Forget OJ. Harry Maguire said, do you know who I am?
No.
That is as bad as you can possibly be as a human being.
Well, it's not the worst, but it does speak to a certain...
I can... Like, I'm
a YouTuber. That's what you were doing around Japan.
Of course.
You were swanning around Japan going, I'm a YouTuber. I mean, I did witness you to explain to somebody that you were a YouTuber. So you can deny it all you want, Owen. But you got that little bit of glory, you got that little bit of opportunity, that little bit of ego and celebrity, and you were smearing it all over the Japanese public, whether they wanted it or not.
I think that it's a bit of a... You come across as a bit of a dick when you say it, but would you... If Harry Maguire genuinely felt that he could be a bit of a dick in order to... what he perceived to get a better situation for himself and for a family member in the 100%. Heat of the moment.
You're going to do whatever you're absolutely going to do whatever you want, whatever you can, right? I absolutely agree with that. It is a remarkable scenario. Every step of it is actually incredibly unfortunate sequence of events that leads to this bit. I hope that there is chapter and verse and detail of, and CCTV footage from the whole place that we get to see in the appeal. Because the CCTV footage is going to tell a lot, Who injected Harry Maguire's sister with this mystery substance? How was she okay in the immediate aftermath of that? What was that substance? I mean, there is definitely a lot for us to talk about there. It's 9:02 this morning. I do want to talk about something else. We'll get back to Leo Messi. I was being slightly facetious earlier on when I talked about the possibility of Daniel Levy stumping up 100 million quid. But, like, if you own a club, or if you're the chairman of a club or the chief executive of a club who has access to funds, who plays in one of the big leagues in world football, it behooves you to see if you can get the money together behind the back of the couch to pay Leo Messi to come and join your team for 2 years and to make the phone call, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would not have been the favourites to sign Tom Brady, as we were already talking about a little bit earlier on. But they made some sense eventually, and there was enough things there for Tom Brady to go, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, okay, let's do it. Somebody somewhere might be able to change Leo Messi's mind. Are Spurs that team? Probably not, because he might not get on with Jose Mourinho. And we now know a lot more about Jose Mourinho today than we did yesterday because of Amazon Prime. And this is one of the stories that's in the Times of London. The first 3 episodes have been made available to the media before they go live. And Jose Mourinho is actually the star. This is the 30 for 30 / Jose Mourinho biopic that we didn't know we needed, but it turns out we did.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's an interesting point that's where you start on Lionel Messi. I think that there's like a connection that we can slightly make here in terms of what we've learned, first of all, about Daniel Levy. Just to address that first of all. Like, what's blatantly obvious from the first couple of episodes, the ones that we've seen, is that Daniel Levy really does thrive in this idea that Spurs are about to become, in his belief, a new powerhouse in English football. He loves the idea of status. In episode 1, he gets great pride out of saying, I wooed the NFL for 3 years in order for them to bring one of their London games to our stadium. He loves that idea of like touring Roger Goodell around the stadium, loves that power trip, loves the idea that he's sitting having lunch with Jose Mourinho. really enjoys the fact, that he can, have a conversation with Mauricio Pochettino, as we see in episode 1, and is talking about his cashmere scarf, describing it as very smart indeed. I think that he's the type of person who would love to bring Lionel Messi to that club, which I guess shows his ambition. But you're right, this is the Jose Mourinho show, very much. First half of episode 1 is the Poch era, then he gets sacked, and then Jose comes in, and it's really access all areas in the early stages of Jose Mourinho, or at least the stuff that they left out must have been incredible, because the stuff that they left in was pretty bloody good. It is a step above the Manchester City All or Nothing documentary, to say the least, in terms of the juicy details we get. Like, for example, on day 1, Jose Mourinho sitting in his office. He's got Sky Sports News on in his office, talking about Jose Mourinho. So the fact that he's happy enough, working away, doodling away on his notepad, Sky Sports News talking about himself is up on screen. Here's some pundit on screen saying that Jose Mourinho is not going to work out at Tottenham Hotspur, and we just see Jose walk up to the TV, say "F off," and turn off the television. It's does he know that the cameras are there? It seems that they're stationary, or is there a part of Jose Mourinho which is like, I kind of like the fact that I'm now the star of my own little version of Big Brother? The one takeaway that I took from Jose is that there's a certain sadness to him that exists, and I kind of had it pinned down as just a lot of grumpiness that came with middle age. That's kind of what I had Jose down as in recent years, but I think there's just a bit of genuine sadness about Jose. We often say that the game has passed him by, or that the peak of Jose Mourinho has long since gone. I think he probably realises that, and he feels a certain sense of melancholy about that. Like, there's a conversation with Dele Alli he has in episode 2, where he's warning Dele Alli about about wasting his potential. And he says, one day you're 20, and the next day you're 56. Jose Mourinho, of course, is 56 years old while having that conversation. You could say that it's quite insular and, I guess, quite self-obsessed that he's making a comparison between himself and Dele Alli in that conversation he's having with Ali. But to me, it points that Jose Mourinho very much feels Father Time misses the young version of Jose Mourinho, the handsome, more successful version of Jose Mourinho.
You make it sound like an episode of OTB AM there on.
That's exactly what it is. You're the past is peak Jose Mourinho, and I'm the Dele Alli who will never reach his potential.
Well, and so does Dele Alli feel like somebody who is responding well to what Jose Mourinho is dishing out? Because he's very insulting about Dele Alli on the pitch. Some nice details emerge where Alex Ferguson only gave me one piece of advice in my time at Manchester United. That was sign Dele Alli for his ferociousness and his competitive spirit. And then I get here and it turns out he's lazy in training. He's saying this. He's saying this to Dele Alli, right? Yeah. Like a shit trainer, I think, is one of the things he says to his face. Now, in fairness, he's pretty consistent in that the stuff he's saying behind their backs, and we do get conversations between himself and his coaches, he tends to not only replicate that in his face-to-face conversations, but tends to go a level above. He is an honest man, Jose Mourinho, and that's pretty clear from this. But what is remarkable, and I know it's touched on in a couple of the papers this morning, is either the editing or the camera work in this. It does really feel like you're watching an episode of Big Brother, because it feels like the cameras are stationary. Someone says something and the camera just rests on the target of that statement just for a second or two longer than perhaps they should, which in Dele Alli's case during this conversation is not exactly the happiest face you've ever seen. You're actually kind of scratching your head thinking, is this going down really badly with Dele Alli? Is Dele Alli being told that he's not going to reach his potential and that he perhaps isn't trying hard enough? Is this not the way to motivate this guy whatsoever? He does not look like a happy camper. The same goes for Serge Aurier when Jose has a pop off him as well for being a bit of a liability for giving away penalties. The camera rests on his face for about 5 seconds afterwards, and you can tell that Serge Aurier just wants to punch something. Watching it, do you feel like football has passed Jose Mourinho by?
I think watching a lot of his games at the top tier, you sometimes get that feeling. I think, and I know nobody needs this to be pointed out, he's mentioned it a couple of times in the documentary. Football is all about winning, he says. As a 10-year-old, he says, you go out, you play with your friends, you win. That's all you want to do. Beating the opposition is the only thing that matters when it comes to football. You contrast that with someone like maybe, I don't know, some of the great South American coaches of the 20th century, or even with Pep Guardiola and Cruyff. that is very much a treaty version. That's very much the one-dimensional sport they don't share. They sort of view it as more philosophical than that football should be played in a beautiful way and the end goal is to win. Jose Mourinho cares about one thing, and that is to beat the opposition. It doesn't matter how you do it. And that is why we have quite often the product that Jose Mourinho has. He sometimes feels that his players aren't good enough. He certainly feels that his players at Manchester United were not good enough, because he walked into this Tottenham dressing room and says to Harry Kane, you have got much better teammates. You've got much better tools at your disposal than I had at Manchester United. I think we know that Tottenham is not the best squad in England at the moment. So taking those things into account, Jose Mourinho has felt that he hasn't had the tools at his disposal to win a Premier League since Chelsea. And that is why we see a fairly turgid game plan at times from him, because it's the only way he feels he can win with these people.
And is there evidence of this? Does that come across in that conversation with Harry Kane? I suppose that's where we're actually getting some insight from this. So when you saw this, you were actually raving about the quality of it, saying it was better than the Man City one.
Yeah. Better than the Man City one in terms of juicy details. I think the Man City one definitely felt like more of a kind of an assault on your senses. As I said that, I do remember seeing that in the cinema. So that's probably the difference here, rather than watching it on my TV here. Maybe that's it. But I definitely felt that maybe with Manchester City, they had to use a lot of wallpaper to cover up the fact that a lot of it was just really bland. And also, Manchester City are really successful. It goes to show that the less successful you are, the better a documentary product you will have associated with you.
One of the things that's happened a lot in American sports is that it has become almost as valuable, and sometimes in some cases more valuable, to be very good at TV than being an active participant as a coach or in some cases a player. Less so players, because obviously there's only a limited amount of players who can play certain positions. But Tony Romo's getting paid more now than he would have been if he was actually still the Dallas Cowboys, or he would have earned more for the next decade than he did for his last 10 years playing. And we're starting to see, for example, Sean McVay, the coach of the LA Rams, was talked to by ESPN for Monday Night Football, and they might have been able to pay him as much as he would earn coaching a team in the NFL. So
that's extraordinary.
It is, but we're getting to that point now where actually, I think Sky recognised the value of having Roy Keane there. People are in and out on Roy Keane as somebody, as a pundit, but paired with the right people, it's going to be brilliant entertainment. So you can put Keane and Neville together, for example, and Neville will give you the stuff about the fullbacks and the positioning and all that kind of stuff, and Roy Keane will give you the other stuff, and that's not a bad combination. You would happily sit and watch that. I suspected that when Mourinho was doing his TV, he was unwilling to be honest because he felt like he was still going to be part of the game. But I'm sure that if somebody sat him down and said, BT, for example, and said, okay, this is who you are now, and we will pay you as much as you would get for managing Spurs or Inter Milan or Barcelona, or he's not going to get the Barcelona job, but wherever that next gig is going to be a person who goes on TV and says the things he's saying in private, would that not be something that would be worthwhile? Is he not actually perfect for this role now?
Yeah, definitely. There was definitely a sense that he was a really good pundit, but I think it was pretty clear that he was holding some things back because he knew he was going to go back into management. You're basically saying carve a career path out for Jose Mourinho in the media, where he sees a sustainable future for himself in a studio or on the sideline or in the gantry or whatever.
Do it for 10 years. Do it for 10 years and then retire. And it's much easier, far less stress. You're not actually at the training ground every day. You're watching TV and getting a bit of research brief, and away you go. And there's a team of people around you giving you that research. This isn't like sitting at home going, what am I going to do today? It's like, go to an office if you want to, and make them read the internet to you. Like, have somebody dictate the transfer rumours page on BBC and be like, okay, Jose, this is what's happening in the world according to the world's media. There's loads of ways to fill your days.
Dictating the transfer rumours on the BBC, the similarities between this documentary and OTB AM really do not stop, to be quite honest.
9:13, nearly 9:14, bang on 9:14, I lie. So a very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM if you just joined us. It's essentially a Leo Messi special here, 2.5 hours of what the hell happened, what's happening next, parsing through the details as much as we have, and plenty more of that goodness still to come your way. A reminder, of course, that OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Now, you might know Himesh Patel from EastEnders or Yesterday. He's also landed a role in Christopher Nolan's new film, Tenet, which is in cinemas from today. He's up next after these, and then Nathan Murphy and Tim Vickery on the way to talk Messi.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB Sports Radio.
We've got a panel who know a thing or two about being trailblazers.
All right, sport was already kind of impeded upon.
Sinead Kassan.
There's an innate interest in it anyway.
Dermot Lang, it didn't blow me away with him. Jason Sherlock and Kieran Donaghy with us.
Basketball would have been my main game.
Retro panel for you now.
This is OTB Sports Radio. The Retro Panel. Wednesdays and Thursdays from 4.
OTB Sports, in partnership with Cadbury FC, are kicking off a brand new series of in-depth chats with some of the biggest names in Premier League and Irish football history. To get the ball rolling, Republic of Ireland goalkeeping legends Packy Bonner and Shay Given will sit down with host Joe Malloy for an intimate chat which will be coming your way on August 27th across OTB Sports social channels and on OTB Sports Radio. If you want us to put your question to Bonner and Given, keep an eye on OTB's channels to find out how to get involved. Search OTB Sports in the App Store for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
Okay, delighted to say we are joined on the line now by one of the stars of Tenet, Himesh Patel. Himesh, you're very welcome to the show. Have you seen this in the big screen yet, is the first question.
Yes, I have. Yeah, I got to see it a couple of weeks ago on the IMAX screen in London.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really quite something, and seeing it in the cinema, it's really great that you know, should people feel safe to do so, then they can go and experience it in the cinema.
I'm not sure if you've had many conversations with everybody else who was involved in the production of this. Is there a sense that you guys recognise the responsibility almost of coming back to cinemas, and this is the first real movie we've had in cinemas since everything has locked down as a result of the pandemic? The little bit of responsibility and pressure that comes with that, I guess.
I think in terms of pressure, it's not really anything that we're worried about on a personal level or on a financial level. I don't think anyone's doing it so that we can, you know, have a great opening weekend and make back all their money and that sort of thing. It's about the experience of going to the cinema. It's something that Chris celebrates, Chris Nolan, and it's something that he makes his movies for that reason. He wants them to be experienced in a cinema. And it's great that the movie has been, you know, that the studio have seen the movie and that they're confident that they want to try something new with it, where they can kind of share it with people in the cinemas as and when, you know, it's safe to do so. And I think it's just about giving people the option again of going to that special place that we call the cinema and to experience watching a great movie like this.
For sure. Can you take us back, Himesh, to when you get this part and when you start to learn a little bit about Tenet? When do you realise how big a project this is and how massive this is going to be?
I think, you know, the minute I got the call that I was going to be auditioning for a Christopher Nolan movie, you kind of realise that obviously it'll be of a certain scale, but I didn't get to read the script until I was offered the part. And then I read the script, and that's when I realised just how big it was going to be. You know, Chris's movies of late have been, you know, big scale films, you know, with all sorts of amazing practical effects, and I was expecting something of that scale, but this kind of took it and it became even bigger, really. There were things I was reading on the page that I was just wondering how on earth they were going to do it. And then, of course, you know, in speaking with Chris and you know, about my role and about the various sequences in the film, it was amazing to find out exactly how they were going to do it, and it's amazing to witness it on the screen.
Is this the first time you meet Christopher Nolan? Had you met him before actually working with him professionally?
No, it's the first time that I met Chris, and, you know, it's been a real pleasure getting to know him and work with him.
Is there a way you can verbalise how his genius is underpinned, or where that comes from, or kind of the way he thinks about films? For people who've never met him, who aren't too familiar with how he operates inside a production set, is there a way you can almost describe that for us?
He just has a real passion for cinema and for filmmaking and for pushing the boundaries of filmmaking. And as I say, about the cinematic experience, about going to a cinema and just experiencing something you've never experienced before. And I think he strives to bring that to people. And he's done it time and again and succeeded. And and I think he's done it again this time. I think he has a real passion for cinema, for the art of cinema, but also about how to draw audiences to the cinema, how to entertain people, but also make us think. He doesn't look down on his audiences. He appeals to our intelligence, and so he tells stories that are layered and that have amazing sort of levels to them in terms of time. He's really fascinated with time, the different ways that time can work, and so he takes that idea and amplifies it in this movie, really.
That seems to be a theme that prevails through a lot of conversations that we have with actors at the moment. We had Anson Boone on a couple of months ago talking about 1917 and how one of the greatest triumphs of that was that everybody involved gave the audience the credit of being intelligent people and not trying to patronise them with tells or being unnecessarily childish in how they describe their film or how they produced it. The same can definitely be said for everything that Nolan does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to... You can't look down on your audiences. People are intelligent. Cinema is an art form that's been going on for 100 years at least now, and it's a language that we all speak, and so people know when something isn't quite right, and so I think Chris understands that language of cinema. He knows how to convey that to people.
Himesh, you are a Tottenham Hotspur fan. We couldn't let you go without asking you about the season that has been, the season that is to come for Tottenham. Let's put this to you. What would be your Jose Mourinho satisfaction rating out of 10 at the moment?
I'll give him a 7, I think. It's not been an easy season, and I wasn't convinced. I mean, I'm a big Pochettino fan, so I wasn't particularly convinced when he came in and replaced Poch, but he's done a good job with what he had. It's been a really difficult season with injuries and that sort of thing, but we'll see how this transfer window goes, and hopefully we can bounce back in the coming season.
22 minutes past 9 here this morning, and OTB Sports, in partnership with Cadbury FC, are kicking off a brand new series of in-depth chats with some of the biggest names in Premier League and Irish football history. To get the ball rolling, Republic of Ireland goalkeeping legends and Donegal men Packy Bonner and Shay Given will sit down with host Joe Malloy for an intimate chat, which will be coming your way tomorrow across OTB Sports social channels. Check out cadburyfc.com for updates and promotions and giveaways. Right. Nathan Murphy is here. It means it's time for Deal or No Deal.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
Nathan Murphy, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
Reeling from the news that Leo Messi is available?
I know, jeez. When it started emerging yesterday evening, you're thinking, is this the same old story that we've heard over the last few weeks and months, and even at times over the last years? But this time it's the real deal. If you send a fax, if you go to the effort of finding a fax machine and sending an actual fax,
well, we don't know.
You got to be serious about things.
We don't know if it's an actual fax. There's a bureau fax. It's like registered mail. Yeah. No, let's not let the facts get in the way here. Right. Breaking news from an Ireland perspective in the last 24 hours that most of the world has missed, because obviously they're not as obsessed about this as we are. James McCarthy has a knock, took a heavy challenge in a game yesterday, which reminds us, Nathan, the Nations League is obviously the first two games that we're about to see played from an Ireland perspective. You are Mr. Nations League. You are Dr. Nathan Murphy, PhD in the Nations League. So tell me, for anybody who isn't as nerdy as you when it comes to this material, does the Nations League matter? Is it a qualifying platform for the World Cup in Qatar? Is that a thing? How does this work?
Yes. The Nations League does matter. And if Stephen Kenny intends to be in this job over the next 4 to 6 years, the Nations League is going to consistently matter, because it's going to give him a better chance of qualifying for all the major finals. So the upcoming game, so we've got a game next, just over a week away now, in Bulgaria, and then Finland. Wales are also in Ireland's group for the Nations League. So those games are important for a couple of reasons. If you want to start going through the various different tournaments, so the next one is obviously the World Cup. The draw for the qualifying stages of the 2022 World Cup take place in November. Now, the actual Nations League isn't relevant to that right now, but FIFA are going to do their seedings on that based on the world rankings in November. So you want to win these games because you want to get high up the world rankings. There's going to be 10 groups. Ireland, as it stands, are ranked 20th in Europe. So right now we will be in the second set of seedings, which is where we want to be. But Slovakia are just above us. Northern Ireland are just behind us. If results weren't to go well in the Nations League, Ireland could easily drop out and end up as third seeds, which is going to make qualification a whole lot more difficult. The Nations League is also relevant for the World Cup qualifiers, may not be that relevant to Ireland. So the way it's going to work, Europe have 13 places at the 2022 World Cup. There's 10 groups. The 10 group winners will all qualify automatically. Obviously a huge ask for the Republic of Ireland to be one of them. The 10 group winners up will all go into a playoff, and the top 2 teams in the Nations League that aren't one of the other 20 will also go into that playoff. So the playoff, the European playoff for the 2022 World Cup is going to be made up of 12 teams fighting it out for 3 places. So they'll go into groups of 4, and the winners of those groups of 4 will qualify. It is complicated. But if Ireland were to win their group, if Ireland were to win this group in the Nations League with Wales, Finland and Bulgaria, they would definitely have a chance of getting one of those places if they needed it, because 20 teams are already going to be taken care of. So you'd imagine they're the teams that are going to be in League A anyways, and the other quality European nations. So if you win your group, if Ireland were to go and win all these games between September, October, November, and there's potentially 8 of them, you qualify for Euro 2020, you have given yourself a brilliant chance in a number of different ways of qualifying for the World Cup in terms of seedings and that. And also then it leads on to Euro 2024 in Germany, because if Ireland were to win their group, then they move up to League A. They're guaranteed a playoff place. Even if they end up staying in League B, they're pretty much guaranteed a playoff place. It's much like this time around, where even though we didn't even win a game in the Nations League, we still managed to be in this playoff against Slovakia.
Yeah.
But if it was to go disastrously wrong, if it was to be an absolute disaster and we finished bottom again, remember we got an absolute reprieve because they changed the Nations League. So we were meant to have been relegated to League C, but they decided to up the numbers in League B. So we remain in League B. Don't you be laughing. We remain in League B. If we were to be relegated, if this was to be a bit of a shit show and Ireland finished bottom of that group, well, then there's a very good chance you don't even get a playoff.
Okay.
And as I say, you're seeding. I would say if Ireland finished bottom of their group, they're more than likely going to be third seeds for the World Cup draw, and your chances of getting a playoff for either the World Cup or Euro 2024 are far, far more difficult.
Okay, so big games to kick things off, and it looks like we don't know yet what the story is with James McCarthy. So,
actually, I do know what the story is with James McCarthy. I was talking to some people around Palace, and it was just a precaution. He is meant to be perfectly fine, and they don't expect there to be any great issues.
All right, that's breaking news. You buried the lead. That's not unusual, Nathan. But go on, tell us.
It was. I think, as you said, it was a 50-50 challenge. He got a bit of a jolt to his knee, but they just took him off as a precaution. Now, even a precaution, obviously, we're only a week away from the game. The concern will be that maybe the club look at that and think, we don't want him travelling. He's due to link up with the Ireland squad on Sunday, but there's no reason why he can't. The injury isn't in any way serious. So I know he hasn't played for Ireland in, 4 years at this stage. So you got to have a concern, particularly after Stephen Kenny spoke so highly of him. Like, he is going to start these important games without question in the middle of midfield. But it's a pre-season friendly. They're not taking any risks, so they're not expecting anything, even short term. Okay. So unless the club make a decision they don't want him to travel, injury-wise, he should be perfectly fine.
Okay, great. That's very, very positive news on a morning when the papers are full of the okay, the other thing that we want to talk to you about, which is rules-based, is, look, I don't want to look like we're desperate or there's the smell of want of us, but just because the situation yesterday presented itself, which merits the conversation. No Jack Grealish in the English squad. Who knows if his behaviour during lockdown had an influence on Gareth Southgate. Gareth Southgate did put Harry Maguire in his squad, by the way, then took him out eventually afterwards. But in the meantime, Jack Grealish made his decision. He made his English-shaped St. George's Cross bedspread bed, and he has been cavorting in that ever since, right? Fair play to him. However, a discussion has begun in the background amongst many nations about whether or not the regulations around international declarations should be as steadfast as they are at the moment. And simultaneous to the hippie crack escapades, the one slip or one flip-flop moments that Jack Grealish has had, in the background, greater forces have been at work, where conversations are now being had. A rule change is potentially on the cards, is it not?
A rule change is potentially on the cards, but unfortunately, you're only still going to get one flip-flop. So it is not going to be relevant for Jack Grealish. Now, that's not to say rules don't change further down the track again. So as it stands, and the plan isn't for this rule to change, you can only change nationality once. And he's already done that.
I thought
so
you could flip-flop. You can only flip. You can't flip-flop.
Exactly. There's a lot of flipping, there's no flopping. So Jack Grealish played for Ireland at under-21 level. He changed his international clearance to be able to play for England, and he can't change back as it stands. And there's no plans within these negotiations for that to change.
Okay, I thought there was.
What they are talking about is that players who have yet to flip, who have played for their country, so the likes of Declan Rice, but even if you have played 3 games for your first national side before the age of 21, you can potentially move, so long as you haven't played for that international side within the previous 3 years. So it's not going to happen, but somebody like James Maddison, potentially, who has played for England once, if it was to go horribly wrong for him, and he's not in this squad, but somehow over the next 3 years he didn't play for England, potentially he could come and play for Ireland. Likewise,
Michael Obafemi,
who, it is 2 years now since Michael Obafemi made his debut for the Republic of Ireland. Yeah, it is 2 years since that trip to Denmark. Has only played the once. So theoretically, in a year's time, he could decide to move to England or to Nigeria. Now, a lot of this is up for discussion when FIFA meet next month as to the usual friendly games, competitive games. So none of this is set in stone at all. And there's other areas they're looking at in terms of eligibility. And if you've been living in a country for 5 years, I know from reading up on it, there's a lot of excitement in China at the moment with the amount of players they brought into their league as to how many of them they can naturalise and get playing for their international side. But if this was the rule, and even if you had played a competitive game before the age of 21, hadn't played again for 3 years, that you could potentially move, we could be in a situation in a year's time where Michael Obafemi would have a decision to make, obviously considering everything that's gone on over the last 48 hours. So my feeling on eligibility is we're almost always going to lose out when it comes to England. But that over the coming years, because of the way our country has changed, actually we may end up benefiting from all those second generation, whether they're Eastern European or African, who will be having this tug of war that Michael Obafemi is having as well when it comes to England, Nigeria, the Republic of Ireland, that we'll probably benefit quite a bit from this. But I think when it comes to a straight, players who were born in England, by and large, will probably lose out.
Nathan, there has been some suggestion that a bit of flopping might be allowed. Just some suggestion, like obviously the headline on FIFA's new eligibility rules is the 3-game thing. That if you don't play 3 times, you can swap. Just quoting from a Fox Sports article here, it says FIFA's new flexibility even suggests letting players revert back to their original national team if they never actually play for the second one. And then a second article online here says the proposal also allows for players to revert to their original national teams if they never actually played for the second one that they opted for. So I'm reading that and I'm thinking, okay, this is only a proposal. It would need to go to the floor. It would need to be a concrete proposal. It would also need to pass. But that would mean that Jack Grealish, because he's never played for England, can flop after doing his flip.
That doesn't seem to be among what they're putting forward next month. But again, if this is changing on such a regular basis, maybe in a couple of years, Jack Grealish is gone.
Couple of years too late.
He ain't coming back. He's not in this England squad. Maybe Gareth Southgate is teaching him a bit of a lesson, but he's going to be in England squads down the track. So Jack Grealish is gone. But it is like, again, because we have had so many from all the way going back to the granny rule to Declan Rice to Jack Grealish to, as I say, the next generation of players who were born in Ireland but whose heritage is in other countries. Like, it's just going to make it so complicated from an FAI point of view at underage level, and we're getting excited about players. They even make their debut, and then you're still worried about, everyone was urging Martin O'Neill, get Michael Obafemi on because it's done and we can all relax. whereas now maybe we can't relax.
Yeah, well, I think that they'll put Ofemi in a squad sooner rather than later, and he's going to play his way into the team because he's hopefully going to start the season the way he finished last season, and it will become impossible for Stephen Kenny not to pick him. Look, let's move on. It's 9:34. Nathan, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is Leo Messi to remain at Barcelona?
Well, I've been listening all morning to the many actual experts you've had on the show. It still feels as though it's maybe a 7.
Oh.
No. Yeah, that he's basically just put it out there. If the president resigns, does Messi still go?
I think that he wants to play in a team that's going to be good. And Ronald Koeman's come in and been muscular in his approach to this. And they're getting rid of all his mates. And he's like, I have to go in every day and look at you, Koeman. Look at you. Look at your face. I have to look at your face and go, I have to listen to you telling me what to do. No. I want to go and be with Pep. Or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, or that German dude who I won't be able to even understand a word he's saying at PSG, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's the romantic in me that thinks Barcelona and Lionel Messi has just got to last, and that this is just that power play, that he's gone further than he's ever gone before. But if he gets what he wants and the president is gone, well, then actually he thinks, does he really want to go to Manchester City? Okay. It adds another string to his bow if he goes to City and he leads them to a first Champions League title. Likewise, if he were to go to Paris Saint-Germain and finally bring them to the promised land. But as much as I'd love to see him in the Premier League.
Quick, 7 out of 10, you're saying. 7 out of 10 he stays at Barcelona.
7.
How likely then is he to join Pep to win a Champions League with Man City? 1 to 10.
Well, do I automatically have to say 3 out of 10?
No, because there's other options too. It's not like, I mean, you could have 120% here if you want.
Yeah, I think if he goes, certainly it does seem as though City are the favourites right now. They probably give him everything he would want.
Rapid fire, out of 10. Come on, play the game.
Out of 10, 8.
To go to City. Math's not your strong point, baby. Okay, do Manchester United emulate the Glazers' power play, which brought Tom Brady to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and bring Messi to Old Trafford? Out of 10.
3.
Will Messi go to Paris Saint-Germain and rejoin Neymar and get to play with Mbappe? What a team. Out of 10.
7.
Okay. Is there any chance the jokers in the pack, the free-spending Inter Milan, bag the superstar? 1 out of 10. 1 to 10.
5.
Okay. How disappointing would it be if he goes to a team in the Gulf, MLS, or China? Out of 10.
10.
Yeah. Here at OTB Sports, we're monitoring reports that Jose Mourinho wants to bring Matt Doherty to Spurs. First place I saw this was Neil O'Riordan in The Sun. This is a live possibility. Would it be a good move?
It'd be a great move for Matt Doherty, though. What system are Tottenham going to play that will get the best out of Matt Doherty? So Wolves, as we know, are one of, if not the best drilled team in the years, who are built around using Matt Doherty as often as they can possible out in that right wing-back position. He's built up a great relationship with Adama Traore. Tottenham, are they going to play 3 at the back? Seems highly unlikely. So he's going to play as a more traditional right back, which takes away a huge amount of his talents and his goal scoring ability, unless they were somehow thinking of playing him on the right side of midfield. So from a purely footballing point of view as to where he fits in, maybe you can ask some questions. But the chance to go to Spurs and to play alongside Harry Kane and Dele Alli, I don't think it's one he would turn down. Obviously, Wolves are very much interested in Ainsley Maitland-Niles, which I suspect is where a lot of this is coming from, that Maitland-Niles could play in that spot as well and could be a direct replacement for Matt Doherty, which may open up a spot. I'd be shocked if he was to turn down the chance to go to Spurs if it came. There's a better chance. As good and as impressive as Wolves have been, as much as I love watching them, I think Spurs is still a better bet if you want to go and play Champions League football over the next couple of seasons.
All right, Nathan, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning and for breaking some news in the middle of your long, boring diatribe about the Nations League. It was educational, though. But you broke some news. Well done, fella.
Try my best.
We're proud of you. 0879 180 180 is the number. If you want to get involved in the conversation this morning, you can always use the hashtag OTB AM. We didn't talk about Suarez there, Owen. Graham making the point about Inter Miami. I can see Suarez in Miami. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you've... I got into watching Anthony Bourdain recently. I don't know if you've ever watched any of the stuff. It's all on Netflix at the moment. There's 10 seasons, 8 episodes in each season, and they're all amazing. And I just watched a lot of the American ones back to back, and his Miami stuff was sensational. I had no idea that it's essentially Spanish-speaking, like the vast majority of the population are fully Spanish-speaking. So Suarez could go over there, the climate would be ridiculous, he'd be an absolute superstar, he would tear up trees, he'd feel brilliant again, and, you know, it's like direct flights to Barcelona, direct flights to Uruguay, direct flights to Argentina if he still has gaff over there. I can see him going there for...
pay cut.
What?
He'd have to take one hell of a pay cut,
Would
wouldn't
he?
Like he's on, I'm just Googling Suarez's salary here, £15 million in 2018. He's probably on something similar to that. I presume he's on the same contract from then. The highest paid player in MLS off the top of my head is David Villa, or the highest paid player to have ever played in MLS was David Villa for £6 million a year, I think.
Okay. So there's some pay cut.
In that ballpark, it would need to be a pay cut. But you're right, as a footballer, as a person in the twilight of his career, which he is now 33 years of age, and showing the signs of being in the twilight of his career, or the start of it at least, I think it would be a good move. I think he'd be going to a franchise that is newly set up. You've got an opportunity here for this to kind of take the MLS to the next level, and it is Miami. I've never been, but it looks bloody good on things like Anthony Bourdain.
It does. 9:41 this morning. Worth checking that out, by the way. The scenes with Iggy Pop are particularly memorable. I'm delighted to say Tim Vickery is with us this morning. Tim, good morning to you. How are you?
It's 5:41 in the morning, so I think it's a bit too early to say. But I think I'm all right.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you getting up.
No worries. My pleasure.
Very few things in the world would make us ring you and ask you to get up at this time, but this is the end of an era. Like, you know, if the transfer happens, and I actually think that it's more likely to happen than not at this point, it is like the greatest player who produced some of the best football that history will ever see is involved in a horrible, horrific divorce from the team that made him. It's no crack.
No, and for those who have been thrilled by everything that he's done with Barcelona over the years, it is a sad divorce, but I can't believe that too many people are surprised. Firstly, I can't believe that too many people who follow Barcelona would have been surprised by what happened in that game against Bayern Munich. And secondly, of those people, I can't believe that many would be surprised by the major consequence of that defeat, which is Lionel Messi's desire to leave, because Barcelona have been a shambles for some time. And Messi is at a stage of his career now where it doesn't seem to be in his best interests to be part of a rebuilding job. It's something that he's already doing with Argentina. You may remember after the last World Cup, when Argentina were a shambles, there was a debate about whether he would ever bother playing for his country again. What he's done since with Argentina is actually redoubled his dedication. He's taken on the role of wise old owl with Argentina. There were always complaints that he was too aloof, that he was in his own little world, that he was only ever speaking to his old mate Sergio Aguero. What he's done with Argentina, especially over the last 18 months, is to become the vocal leader, the encouraging figure. He's taken on that burden. And during the Copa America last year, even talked so much after the games that he talks himself into trouble. He picked up a suspension for making unwise remarks about the way that the competition was being run. So he's taken on that wise old owl role with Argentina, but he can't change his country. He can change his club. So why would he want to do the same role with Barcelona, a wise old owl in a rebuilding process, when he has options? He can go elsewhere. He can look for a club that can give him the chance of winning the Champions League. And also, it would seem that he's lost respect for those who have been running Barcelona. So it's sad for those of us who've loved what he's done with Barcelona, but I don't see this as at all surprising.
How big is this story as a matter of interest in Brazil, for example? Are they agog at what's going on, or is it a bit like, well, look, we can't be too interested because he's not one of ours?
Well, no, it's huge everywhere. It's huge for anyone who follows world football. It's obviously in Argentina itself. It's very, very exciting, especially for fans of the splendidly named Newell's Old Boys Club in Argentina's second city of Rosario, because that could be one option. He's often talked about his dream of ending his career with the club where it all started, Newell's. I personally think it's premature at this stage. I think if he's got 3 years, maximum 4 left at the highest level, I think he's going to go somewhere that can give him the chance of winning the Champions League. And I would imagine that he wouldn't have made this move without having it relatively clear in his mind where he would like to go. Now, where that's going to be, we're going to find out soon if this thing does go through. But for the time being, I think clubs all over the place can dream, can't they? They can get out their spreadsheets and try and work out a way to pay to pay the wages of this magnificent player, and coaches can plot about how they could fit him into their starting lineup. Players and big clubs can dream about lining up with Lionel. It's exciting times.
I think several people have made the idea public that it makes sense for Leo Messi to know what his next step is here. This isn't just an emotional reaction to what happened last week and to the conversation with Ronald Koeman. Part of me wonders, though, if you're in Leo Messi's situation, you can decide that you want to go to City, or you can decide that you want to go to Paris Saint-Germain, and fair enough, you're not returning. But also, it's nice to be wanted. So you put this out there and you do see what those spreadsheets look like, and you do invite people to make a proper pitch for your talents. If you think back to LeBron James leaving Cleveland the first time, it was essentially an open competition. Like, everybody got the opportunity to go and talk to him and say, yeah, hic is tibi dabo. Here, look as I unfurl my cape at all of the things that I give you. Look down there. Everything there is yours. And I would say that, Man United are cobbling together their package. I mean, I don't know if Roman Abramovich isn't like going, are we sure we want all these young kids from the Bundesliga? Can we not?
Well, as a Tottenham fan, I have to declare an interest. Obviously, I hope Ozzy Ardiles is putting in a word. He's putting a connection to bring him. You couldn't imagine a better stadium in which. But that's the thing. We can all dream. Even Leeds fans can dream about him teaming up with Bielsa in the Premier League. So dreaming is free. Let's all enjoy ourselves working out how Messi would fit into our team.
How big a factor is it that Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez have such a close relationship? We've heard a few contributors earlier on this morning saying it is a factor. From, I guess, writing about both of these people and speaking about both of these people throughout your career, how close have they become over the last couple of years?
Well, they've had a splendid partnership, but I wouldn't stress that too much as a factor in Messi leaving, because I think Suarez has become part of the problem. Magnificent player, not only a fighter, but a player of tremendous quality. And he scored a terrific goal against Bayern. And he had a hand in the other goal that they scored, which was the own goal, where Alaba panics and puts it into his own net because of the presence of Suarez. So he still has plenty to offer. But Messi, over recent times, has stressed that even against lesser teams in La Liga, Barcelona are being pressured, and they're not showing the intensity that lesser sides in La Liga can show. And Suarez is part of that problem. It's part of the mismanagement of Barcelona in recent times. Well-run clubs, and the example that I always grew up with as a kid was like Liverpool in the 70s and 80s, utterly ruthless about replacing players. They'd replace a player a year or 2 seasons before you thought it was necessary to do so. And the spine of that Barcelona side grew old together. Piqué, Busquets, Suarez. Messi is the same age as them, but Messi, on his range of talents, is so magnificent that he can compete at the highest level after having lost that little bit of his pace. But it's a problem with Suarez. We clearly saw in the Bayern Munich game, as you've been seeing with Barcelona for some time, the lack of attacking pace. And Suarez, in his pomp, absolutely magnificent on the shoulder of the last defender. Magnificent. And what that does is that forces the opposing defensive line back, creating space in which Messi can work his magic. Now, against Bayern, it didn't happen at all, because Suarez, without his pace and with no pace in the attacking, and that's been a problem for Barcelona for a while. They misspent on Felipe Coutinho, who they didn't need, couldn't solve that problem. He's another player who wants the ball to feet. Dembele, who was another expensive option, has been unfit and has given them problems. And so Bayern were able to press with absolute relentless ruthlessness. When the goal that effectively wins that game, remember, Suarez has just scored and Barcelona have pulled it back to 4-2, and you're thinking, can they get out of jail with this one? And the goal that ends it as a contest, it's Bayern's 5th goal. You get Davies, the Bayern left back, getting to the byline, pulling the ball back for Kimmich, the right back, to score from inside the 6-yard box. So you've got a side that can throw so many players forward that you got both of its fullbacks right up there, and they can press that high because they're not worried about the pace at the other end. You know, they didn't go through some of the defensive risks that they had against Lyon even, or against PSG in the final. So I don't think it's just a case of loyalty to Luis Suarez. I think it's the case of losing respect for people running the club who haven't been taking the hard decisions, the necessary decisions to come up with a competitive team, because these heavy defeats in the Champions League have become a dismal annual routine for Barcelona, and it's a big rebuilding job, isn't it? I mean, this is going to take time, and time at the highest level is a commodity that is scarce in the life of Lionel Messi. So, you know, if Barcelona can't be competitive for the next couple of years, and Messi has lost respect for people running it, and he's got options, why not use those options, and why not see where else he can go and what else he can do?
Okay, it's 9:51 this morning. Our guest is Tim Vickery, and a reminder, of course, that OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Tim, if you reckon that it's a couple of years early for him to go to South America, it was interesting, the story broke in Argentina through a journalist that he has broken stories with before. Is there any rumblings in the press there about what the most likely outcome in terms of what Messi wants next?
Well, the sports paper were going big on Man City because of two factors. One is Guardiola, the other is Sergio Aguero. But I don't think anyone, at the moment, it doesn't seem that anyone really has an inside track. So the ones that are being touted are, I'm sure, the same ones that are being touted with you, which is City, United, Inter Milan, and Paris Saint-Germain.
It doesn't feel like anybody else is a realistic contender at the moment. It doesn't feel like Juventus somehow enter into this by somehow uniting the two warring factions, or by getting rid of Cristiano in the summer, and maybe if they sell Cristiano to Paris Saint-Germain, all of a sudden Leo Messi to Juventus seems like it's a possibility. But those seem like the most obvious ones. Can we tease out the Manchester United one, because I think that's kind of that has kind of come into people's consciousness quite late. Do you think that's realistic?
Well, it would be very exciting, wouldn't it? I mean, if we're talking about Messi at this stage needing to be surrounded by attacking pace, then United have that in spades, don't they? So in footballing terms, that may be the easiest fit, perhaps an easier fit even than Man City. Well, what a move that would be for United, who all through their history, since the days of Matt Busby, have gone out of their way to be a real glamour club. Part of the mission of United under Busby was to add real colour to a grey, hard-working industrial town. So it would be a signing which would really scream out that United are working in that tradition after a few years where the bar has been lowered a little bit. So I think that would be very exciting. But whatever's going to happen, it's going to be very exciting at the moment. Speculation time is wonderful.
There's no sense that we've seen a little bit of what Leo Messi looks like outside of Barcelona with his performances for Argentina, where, as you've said, he takes so much responsibility on himself that sometimes the performance is damaged, that there's a potential for that to occur at another club level? Or is that simply those performances aren't as good because the scenario there is so weighted against him?
You know, it's almost exactly 15 years since his international career started. I remember it well. He came on as a sub in a friendly against Hungary. Was instantly, he just turned 18. He was instantly magnificent, you know, instantly on the ball and moving with the fluidity that we've come to love. And he was moving so well that he had a Hungarian defensive midfielder hanging on to him, and he tried to get free, and he swung an arm to get free. And the Hungarian went down like a sack of potatoes, and the referee reached for his red card. And Messi's international debut, very harshly actually, lasted less than 5 minutes, which I suppose is a symbol for 15 years of frustration with Argentina, because although he's won the Olympic title, that the senior title has eluded him. It's very harsh to see his international career as a failure, and he scored more goals for Argentina than anyone else. There have been some magnificent performances, and if you swap, you know, Maradona had Burruchaga, who raced away to Maradona's pass to score the winner in the 1986 World Cup final. Well, Messi has had Gonzalo Higuain, because the 3 consecutive finals, the World Cup final in 14, Copa America finals in 15 and 16, Argentina lost them all narrowly, and every time the big chance fell to Higuain, and every time it was blown. So you swap Burruchaga with Higuain, and people will be thinking of Messi's international career, I think, in a very different light. There have been some superb performances for Argentina down the line. I mean, they probably wouldn't have qualified for the last World Cup without him. Those who've over the years who've seen him as a problem, I couldn't agree with that at all for Argentina. He's so often he's been the solution for a team that have had lots of structural problems. And who is the last great Argentine defender, centre-back? Who's the last great Argentine goalkeeper? But as we were saying earlier on, you can't change your country, but you can change your club. So he's in a position now where he can look for a club where the playing staff has a balance where you can get the most out of him. And exactly for that reason, it's so exciting, and he's proved time and time again. Maybe not in some of the big finals, and maybe in the big finals with Argentina, he hasn't come up with that individual greatness. But again, you have to remember that these tournaments, and this is the bane of the international tournament, they happen at the end of the season when players are low on gas, and Messi's, I think, been low on gas. I remember the World Cup 2014. You're watching him there at the end of the long season, and there are long passages of the game. I was in the stadium for some of Argentina's games, where he's almost like wandering around the centre circle, you know, with his head down, looking as if he just dropped his wedding ring or something, and then suddenly he'll burst into life, because he was clearly rationing himself. That's the problem with the end of season competition. Having him during the entire season, where a rich club will be able to rest him if he wants to be rested, and he doesn't usually want to be rested. He wants to play, but this is the exciting thing for the club that gets him. You're going to get him during stages of the season when he's absolutely fit and absolutely firing on all cylinders, and what a wonderful prospect that is.
You ask who was the last great Argentine goalkeeper. Well, Sergio Romero and Lionel Messi can team up the two goals to their position at Manchester United for a long and fruitful relationship there. One last question. This is probably something that you ponder quite a bit, but at what point do you start to feel that Lionel Messi will accept his decline, or at what point do you think, how many more years does he have at this level? Because he is coming off a Ballon d'Or year. This 2022 World Cup year has been mentioned quite a bit over the last few hours, that he needs to stay at this level for just 2 more seasons. Do you go along with that?
Yeah, I think he's providing he stays fit, I think he's probably got 3 or 4. Because he is so complete. You know, he's a player who he can lose pace and still be magnificent. There's a quote about him from his old teammate for club and country, Javier Mascherano, that the vast majority of players are controlled by the game. Messi controls the game, and sometimes it looks as if he's not only playing, but he's watching from the best seat in the house, because his capacity to analyse the opposition, to find the space where he can be most effective is uncanny. His range of passing is absolutely magnificent. So even if he can't burst through defences with a little moment of acceleration that takes 3 or 4 defenders out of the game, he can still be superb despite that, especially if he's surrounded with the kind of attacking pace that whichever club he plays for can give him. So in the right context, I think his the range of his talents is so extraordinary that I think he can still have 3, maybe 4 years at the highest level ahead of him.
Tim, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Tim Vickery getting up out of bed for us very early this morning to talk to us about Leo Messi. What do you think, Owen? Give us your power rankings.
Paris Saint-Germain number 1, Manchester City number 2, Qatar to join Al Sadd number 3, China number 4, Barcelona we'll go Barcelona number 4, China number 5, Manchester United number 6.
And that's in order of what's most likely to happen. Paris Saint-Germain are top of the table.
I think so. I think that I think that there is going to need to be a little bit of shamelessness that is involved when it comes to the pursuit of Lionel Messi here. Everybody's going to have to lawyer up. You're going to have to try and find loopholes. You're going to have to be fairly, brash with the money you're going to be throwing at your legal team and at Lionel Messi and at the club. Paris Saint-Germain don't exactly have a whole pile of shame. Unite Neymar and Messi again, and with Mbappe on the other flank. Not a bad setup to go win the Champions League next season.
No, it's pretty sensational. And if you're Barcelona, you might be able to do some kind of deal with them where you get first dibs on Mbappe after the World Cup in 2022 or something. So, you can have Messi for 120 million, sign whatever contract you want with him. We'll knock 20 million off for the right to be first to buy the buyout clause of Mbappe, and we get a reduction on it. So there must be some way that you can spin this deal into the future for yourself. So, right, we've had 2.5 hours of essentially talking about Leo Messi, and I've enjoyed every second of it, so I hope you have too. Make sure you subscribe to the OTB AM podcast. The best place to do that is on the Sports app, which you can search OTB Sports in the App Store and you'll get it there. A reminder, OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. If you missed any of the show, you can get the full thing back on YouTube. And we're back live on air tonight from 7 o'clock and online with more Messi and Maguire talk and Liam Toland breaking down rugby's return as well. If you want to get in touch, 087 9 180 180 is the number, and we'll check all the comments on YouTube as well. We'll see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.